Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, also known as Mosport, and I apologise for that accent. We are here for round 6 of the 10th season of Apex Rear Wing in Brazilian Opala stock cars. We are back after a break from last week when we had the endurance race at Laguna Seca. I am Liam Harrison, also known as Madbird, and it is my apocalyptic satisfaction to be joined by Matty Dunlop.
Apocalyptic. The superlatives just get better every single time we jump in, and gee, I've missed your accents as well. Hello, Madbird, and hello, everyone else watching along. It is, of course, Apex Rear Wing. This is round number 6 here at Mosport, or Mosport, however you pronounce it. I'm not even sure. They don't even call that name now, but we're going to call that because it's better than a sponsored name that we're not getting paid for. And it is a regular sprint feature weekend, but it's not going to be regular in terms of the action. It's going to be exciting as hell because this is one of my favourite tracks anywhere on the planet. How do you like it here, Madbird?
We were talking about it in the practice session. I was convinced that we'd done a race here in the past, but apparently not. It's a very, very interesting track with lots of elevation changes and twisty corners. It's sort of similar to, I always get it confused with Mid-Ohio, which is another American track that has a lot of ups and downs and tricky braking zones into corners and such. So I'm absolutely looking forward to this.
Yeah, talk about tricky braking zones. That one into turn 5, Moss Corner, as it's referred to on the map I've got in front of me, is an absolute doozy because you're running uphill, trying to turn in at the same time that you're braking around a weird double apex hairpin, while it's slightly off camber as well, I think. So it's everything you don't want in a braking zone, so it's a real challenge to get around there, especially in these 1986 Chevy Opala stock cars we got here tonight. But it's going to make for some entertaining viewing, that's for sure.
It will indeed. Rodney Andrews, Tyrrell in the chat just saying welcome back, lads. Welcome back to you as well, Tyrrell. Good to see you out on track. And as you can see there, next round is Nazareth, which is going to be bloody exciting. But I believe we have got all the update from last round since we missed the action there. We can give you a quick update on how the points are standing. So, as a result of last week, Xeris is still in the lead of the championship by 73 points, and behind him is still Brenton Foley with Goofball Antics, Resist, Birdo, Netherelmian, Roadhog, Scott Murrell, Sam Smith, Bagsy, Irambo, Zarlingir, Rhodey, Decimation, and Tyrrell rounding out our runners, with Xeris taking out the win at the endurance race at Laguna Seca, Brenton Foley coming home in second, and Goofball Antics in a close run third. He had a fantastic scrap with Resist and Birdo for most of that race, so I highly recommend hopping over onto his YouTube channel to check that one out if you get a chance. Did you catch any of the action last time, Matty?
In a weird way, yes, I did, because I wasn't informed that there would not be a broadcast that night. So I jumped in the Discord like, oh, g'day, guys. And Goofball's like, oh, you're jumping into race, are you? And I was like, making a joke like, oh, I wish I could, but I haven't got my wheel here with me. Not knowing what was going on. I waited in the Discord for about, would have been close to about 45 minutes. And it was about 10 minutes before qualifying's about to start. Couldn't see yourself or stairs jumping in. So I was like, guys, is there a stream tonight? And they're all just like, nah, go on, get your controller, jump on in. So I tried to make a start in practice. I spent 5 minutes trying to map my buttons to my Xbox controller, and I got all the way to the first sector, and I was only 2.5 seconds off the pace at the first split before Xeris killed the session on me. So that was my weekend done.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I mean, 2.5 seconds down on no practice on a controller that you've only just mapped probably isn't really that bad through the first sector. Yes, and apologies from myself at Stairs for forgetting to mention that there wasn't a broadcast last week.
It is all good. It made for a slightly interesting anecdote, so it makes sense.
And hey, you were punctual and you were ready to go. So that's what everyone likes to see in an employee. Not that we are paying you or that we are your employers. Anyway.
As I always am, I'm always punctual and willing to work for any potential employees who have to be watching tonight.
I've just noticed in the practice session, I've been sort of just keeping an eye on the times. Brenton Foley and Goofball Antics have been trading up at the top. I've just noticed Joshua Bagsy from Midas Racing has just jumped up into second fastest in the session by 0.2 of a second. We haven't seen him anywhere near the top so far this season, really. But he has actually managed to be in time for the entire practice session tonight. So he's been struggling to make it before qualifying before now. So maybe with a bit of practice, these cars are actually suiting him.
Indeed. So this is going to make things very interesting because, of course, Xeris is absent tonight as well. So that's going to blow the championship wide open because he, of course, is our championship leader, as you mentioned earlier, by 73 points. But there are 150 points up for grabs tonight. Brenton Foley would be odds-on favourite if we had markets open for this one by a long shot. He'd be paying about $1.50, I reckon, based on his previous form. But we've seen that anything can happen here. Of course, Xeris and Brenton Foley, the only drivers to register wins so far this season. But we've got quite a few other drivers who have made the podium as well. We've got Josh Baggsy, as you've just been mentioning, who is up in the pointy end of the practice standings at the moment. He's only about a quarter of a second slower than Brenton Foley so far, which is a great effort from Josh Baggsy in that beautiful, beautiful Fortnite car. So I'm really keen to see what he can do in qualifying and, of course, then onto the races that we have later on tonight.
Yeah, as you say, qualifying is kind of the important bit. It's all very well if you put down a good lap time in practice, but as we saw back at Surfers, Xeris was second fastest during qualifying, but cut the track. Second fastest during practice, but then cut the track in qualifying, had to start from the back. So it all comes down to that one lap in the shootout, which will be starting in about 4 minutes. In the meantime, just copying a replay here of iRambo going around that long left-hand, I think that's turn 4, turn 2, and very narrowly avoiding resist, or very narrowly missing. I don't think he was much in control of his car to do any avoiding at that stage, but nearly took out resist.
It's a hell of a corner, isn't it? That whole section from the start to finish line all the way down to the hairpin at the back straight is really, it takes some masterful driving skill to be able to get a car through there. Not just quickly, but also in one piece and on the racing line, because you've got so many undulations and, various forms of camber in both directions that it's really hard to keep it on top of, as we've seen a couple of drivers like iRambo, I believe that was we were looking at just before getting unstuck. I've already lost track of who it was. It was iRambo indeed.
It was iRambo, yeah.
As we watch Goofball going around the track now, and Resist is now taking that second spot in the practice standings away from Josh Baggsy. So we've got another contender to deal with on our hands.
Yeah, so it's nice and competitive for the Foley's got about a 0.2 of a second advantage, but behind him it's a bit of a dogfight, which is going to be interesting to see. It is, yeah, as you say, a lot of curved accelerating and braking zones over crests and stuff. So it's going to be very easy to oversteer off the track. We did Portimao in DRMs, which was rather similar because there are a lot of places where as you come over a crest, you're turning, and if you're not very, very ginger on the throttle, then the car just immediately scoots off to the side of the track as the front end goes light over the crest. So I imagine we're probably going to see quite a few people spinning off the track tonight.
Yeah, I always like to talk about tricky points on tracks that we visit here in Apex Rear Wing, ones that you don't expect to catch the drivers out, but always do. And this place is really full of them, isn't it? Turn 5, the hairpin that we just saw Resist going through, is obviously the biggest one. It's one of the toughest corners anywhere in North America, I think, if you ask me, especially to get it fast on a qualifying run. But the problem is you can really get unstuck everywhere here because it's just such high speed. And that turn 5 is one of the only really clear-cut overtaking opportunities that you get. So you sort of have to try and find your own opportunities in all the other parts of the track, which means we're going to be seeing a lot of bumping and grinding as well as these cars try to slide up the inside of each other at places where passing really shouldn't belong on any other track. We're just seeing a replay of Resist getting the back end out a little bit and cleaning up every single sign that he can possibly get his bumper on the way out there across the main straight, filling in for Sam Smith's usual duty in that regard.
I was about to say no Sam Smith in tonight, so obviously someone's got to pick up the slack. Lots of bumping and grinding, which obviously we don't condone. Obviously you can't do that from a 1.5 meter safe distance. I was mocked for this in the practice session just before, Matty, but I'll run it past you. Are you aware of are you familiar with chibis? The concept of chibis?
Chibis,
as in you're not an anime fan?
I'm not particularly, no.
Excellent. Well, chibis are like, you might see occasionally those sort of like very small, sort of deformed, very cutesy versions of characters. Maybe not, but
it kind of rings a bell, but go on.
the point I'm making is looking at the map of Mosport and looking at it on track. It sort of reminds me of a scaled down, deformed, cutesy version of Road Atlanta.
I kind of see it. I think I do kind of see it because you got that long back straight off the back of the hairpin and a lot of S's. I sort of, yeah. I think it's not something I would have. It's not something I would have really.
I think the thing that does it for me is that turn 5, because it's like it's sort of similar to there's that double right angle right hander at the top of Road Atlanta that leads out onto that long back straight, and then you've got a sort of very abrupt turn into the last sequence of corners before the start finish straight, and then you in the first section of the track you've got some general S's that are quite challenging. But you know, I might be flogging a dead horse, and indeed I probably am. But regardless, I wanted to bring it up and get your opinion on it. And the second that I said, "Are you aware of chibbies?" and there was just like an awkward silence, I knew that I'd made a mistake.
Explain what a chibi actually was, and also for clarification, because I thought you said chippies, and I was like, "Oh, hell yeah, I love chips."
I'm aware of chippies. My goodness. We have lapsed in our practice session as we go into qualifying. Tyrrell has advised us that he's not actually racing tonight, so that's a shame. Especially after I said, "Good to see you out on track." My bad. But
yeah, when you said that, and I looked at the timing screen and didn't see his name anywhere, I was like, "Huh, interesting."
Yeah, my bad. But it will be lovely to have your company in the chat instead. And I believe Xeris might be hopping into the chat at some stage as well, as he is resting up on his race off.
And for everyone who's also watching, please jump in the chat, say g'day, chuck your predictions in, let us know where you're watching from, who you want to win, get involved. It's always good to see you in the YouTube chat playing along with us.
Absolutely. Zarlingier will be our first runner to set a what am I trying to say, a flying lap. So he is beginning his outlap around Mosport. And I must apologise for I may be a little bit scatterbrained tonight. It is it's quite warm in this room, and we've sort of hit our first little uptick in temperatures for this year here in Adelaide. So my body hasn't acclimatised quite yet.
If you want, I can go and get drunk so I can match you. But you sound all right to me so far, Madbird. So we should be all good.
Well, I'm also sorry. Please go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I was just looking at the pit lane as Zarlingier came out, and I've had a lot of experience with this in my own sort of messing around with sims. And that pit lane is so tantalizing and painful, which sounds weird, to drive down, because it's a big, wide pit lane. You can see the exit onto the track from a mile away. And because it's downhill, you have to ride the brakes the whole way down. You're just like, oh, I just want to floor it and get out of here so fast. And they put the control line all the way at the end, so you have to be on the limiter the entire way down. And it's just like, oh, please let me go. And these cars don't even have a limiter, so you've got to actually be, you've got to have your wits about you and be able to control your speed. Otherwise, we might be liable to see quite a few pit lane speeding penalties over the course of tonight.
Very well could. Have you ever had the pleasure and the pain of racing in a sim at the old version of Spa, or the version of Spa that uses the entire pit lane, including past La Source? Because that is a painful pit lane to traverse, because it is essentially the length of the start-finish straight and then halfway down to Eau Rouge at pit lane speed before you can actually accelerate.
I feel like I may have tried it once in like GTR 7 or whatever game may have had it, GTR 07 from back in the day, and then thought, nah, I'm good, thanks. So I would have left at that point. I thought you meant the old Spa going through the Master Kink and things like that, and I was like, oh, geez, that's a throwback.
No, not. I said the old Spa, and then I realised that it's actually the current Spa that they use, because the reason I'm aware of it is because that is the version in Assetto Corsa Competizione, obviously with the 24 hours of Spa. A lot of competitors, they need all of those garages, but we are talking over the top of Zarlingier's his hot lap, and he is well on his way.
He certainly is. He's going down the back straight now. It's a relatively short lap here, and the high speeds make it a very quick runabout for these cars. we'll get a benchmark for times. I've actually completely forgotten what all our practice times were already, as I tend to do. Is around about a minute 30s is what I'm hearing in my ear. So he's on minute 11 so far through the second sector split as he comes through the S's, which I feel is a little bit of a misnomer because this whole track is basically S's in various forms and shapes. But if you're going to apply that term to any series of corners, it would be these ones here. But he's just about coming to the start-finish line now, and his lap time will be a 1 minute 33.282.
Yeah, I think the best time that Foley managed was a low 129, because I heard a few people saying that they were hoping he'd be able to get into the 128s. And I agree. They seem almost too wide radius to be S's. When I think of S's, I think of Suzuka, which are quite tight back and forths, whereas those are the ones here for turns 8, 9, and 10 are quite big and swooping, really.
Well, I guess what makes them S's is that there's no straights in between the corners at all. It just goes corner to corner to corner. You don't have time to scratch yourself between them, so you have to treat the whole sequence as one thing, and you have to sort of think about the third apex when you're going through the first one. Know where to position your car so you get the right line through the whole sequence and everything like that. Whereas with these big bends here, you've got little bits of straights in between them so you can sort of readjust and get your line perfect into braking zones like this into turn 5 that we're seeing Rambo go through now. And he's just under a quarter of a second faster than Zarlingier through the first sector split.
It's painful watching that car trying to climb its way out of the apex of the first part of that hairpin, because it's so uphill, and these cars aren't particularly powerful. You can almost hear it just going as it's trying to pull itself through the rest of the corner.
The little engine
slow
that
down
could.
so much.
This little engine definitely can. It's up 0.659 through the second sector, so Rambo is on a flyer.
He absolutely is. He's had some pretty decent pace. He's just been struggling a bit with consistency and has been throwing it off the track a fair bit. But he's been finishing races, which is always good to see. Doesn't bother to use the entire track there, but still about 0.6 of a second faster over the course of the lap, and puts himself ahead of Zarlingier as we turn our attention to Rody in the PBF Race Engineering Red Caltex.
Hashtag Rhodium. Get it out in the chat, folks. We want to see him up on the rostrum tonight here at Mosport. And he starts his flying lap now. So Rody is getting his first points finishes. I think it was his first points finishes in Apex rear. Winkner was his highest finish, is what we saw earlier in the season. He finished 8th at Surfers Paradise, which was great to see from Rody. And nothing but improvement is what we're expecting from then on, especially given his performance at the ASC Bathurst 1000 earlier in the month as well. Jeez,
Yep.
that was almost a month ago. Jeez, time's flying.
Isn't it just? Yes, I believe he was fumbling trying to open his water bottle as he was coming out of Forest Elbow, and had a fairly dramatic accident on Conrod Straight that honestly did less damage than I expected.
Well, that wasn't even the crash that took him out, because he kept going after that. And I think what happened is he had another lapse in concentration later on, and he nosed the fence up at the S's on lap 99, so he just missed lap 100.
Yep, it was, and he was quite gutted, and fair enough. Like, it was a decent effort to get as far as he did by himself. I definitely probably wouldn't have been able to do it. We do have the hashtag Rhodium in the chat from Xeris. Good to see you in the chat. And Stairs just saying brutal, to do with I think that was Rody not troubling the apexes from Tyrrell. So some savage commentary coming in from our chat.
Just saving his suspension for later on, as I believe Rody is. A good strategy there, conservative. And he is faster. He's 1 second faster than Iramo, for a matter of fact. That's probably a pretty good qualifying performance from Rody. So he's up there. He's ahead of 2 people on race pace alone, which is great to see.
And D-Smash now, who is a face we've only seen once before this season. He managed to come along for round 3 at Interlagos, and he got himself an 11th and a 10th there. So didn't cover himself in glory over much, but he hasn't had too much time to practice. So he can be forgiven to a certain extent. He would probably be wanting to improve on that, though, in the hot Marlboro car.
He's going pretty wide of the apexes in those first couple of corners, so he's not looking super speedy at the moment, but we'll see how that's reflected. And he is down marginally on Rody's time so far in the first sector, but he's got plenty of chances to make that up, and he's looking pretty nice and tidy through turn 5 here.
And he's onto this long back. It feels wrong to call it they actually, on the map I've got, they call it the Mario Andretti straightaway. So they don't call it a straight. They call it a straightaway, which I believe is what straight is short for. But doesn't feel like a straight because it's a very, very long curving corner. My map actually believes that there are two corners in the middle of the straight, 6 and 7. So take that however you want to, as he comes through the S's and then around the last corner. Tyrrell just affirming that he loves the kid. Hashtag Rhodium. And Decimage is not faster than Rhody so far. So the Rhodium dream continues, at least so far, as we've got Netherelmian beginning his lap.
The Rhodium dream is well and truly alive. Those who are familiar with our commentary in ASC and whatnot here would have heard us debating whether certain corners can actually be considered corners. I think one of the most controversial tracks is Hidden Valley. But the map that I imagine we're both looking at, you've got the one from Wikipedia in front of you, Madbird?
Correct, yeah. North is to the right and the left. The right and the down.
The right and the left. Bloody hell, it's transcending dimensions.
North should be up in all maps, I believe, but this map does indeed have north to the bottom right. But yeah, I believe you're referring to turn 6 and 7, which it has on the Mario Andretti straightaway.
See, this corner complex here, Nether's just under 2/10 up in the first sector, so he's going pretty quick so far. But this complex here, turn 5, Moss corner, this kink here is referred to part of it. So you've got the double apexes, and that kink is referred to 5A, 5B, and 5C. And when I saw that, I thought, yes, finally, they've treated a corner complex as one corner, because that's how I think most drivers interpret. You've got to imagine it as a whole complex that you take 3 turns at a time. That's how all corners should be numbered. And they put 2 corners on the back straight that don't even bloody exist. It's just completely inconsistent, and I'm not going to die mad on this because we've got a good lap in front of us. Nether is up almost 6/10 through the second sector, so he's doing pretty well through those 2 non-existent corners as he goes through 3 real ones. And he's onto the final straight now. What's his time? 1:30.896. Great lap from Nether. He's 3/4 of a second up on Rhody, and he's provisionally fastest, but we've still got quite a few guys to go, including Roadhog, who we're seeing on screen now, about to take to the line for his flying lap.
In the other VFEV car, along with Deestamage, they have been teammates for several seasons. But no, I don't think that's a bad hill to die on. If I'm honest, Matty, I would die right up there alongside you, because those are not corners. And if instead of having those corners, they just had Moss corner be turns 5, 6, and 7, then they would still have the same amount of corners, and they wouldn't be idiots. So, I think that someone fell asleep at the corner numbering station when they were designing this one, and honestly, I think someone should pay for it. I think that should be turn 5. This should be turn 6. Because it isn't one. It's one complex, but those are 2 distinct corners. It's not a single hairpin. This should be turn 7, and then there should be no corners until you hit turn 8 at the beginning of the S's.
See, if you ask me, in general, I think corner numbers are mostly just soulless entities, and all corners should be named, because that's where you get the most personality out of tracks. You don't talk about Silverstone in terms of turn 1, turn 2, turn 3. You talk about Cops, Maggots, Beckett's, Travel, Stowe, Woodcote, that sort of thing. And we've got a few corner names here. We're going through, this is referred to as the S's, and the final corner of which, the right-hander that brings you onto the main straight, is referred to as White's Corner. We've got a few other names as we go on the lap. Yeah, a little bit there. Not sure how I feel about that name, but there we go. It's on the map, so I'm sticking with it. And Roadhog is posting 1:31.041. So it's just behind Nether, but he's 6/10 up on Rhody. So he slots into second for the time being. And Scott Murrell takes to the track now.
He does. We actually just had Rhody in the chat just saying, my steering rotation broke as he entered quali. 180 degrees at his end was 900 degrees in the car, so he had to tiptoe on his lap. So
that sounds fun.
Yeah, but he's currently 3rd fastest provisionally, even with that tiptoeing. So some pretty encouraging pace by the looks of it from Rhody.
Sounds like it works for him. Maybe we should keep it up.
Maybe. It's the sort of thing where it's like, well, technically the car's broken, but I'm faster, which I'm sure is never something encouraging to realise. But it nevertheless is a thing that sometimes happens. Scott Murrell is very, very, very just up through the first sector. It was about under a tenth of a second up, I believe.
Look, a tenth of a second is a tenth of a second, no matter how you gain it, whether it's your car's broken or your car's working a little bit better than it was. So I think Tyrrell in the chat saying, good lap, mate, considering, and I definitely agree. It's a fantastic lap from Rhodey. I've seen Scott Murrell, who's marginally up by a few hundredths of a second. He's down in this one by 600ths of a second, so it's pretty marginal between himself and Nether. And this final sector is going to prove all the difference in where Scott finds himself lining up on the grid for race one.
A little dab on the brakes and then flicks it into the last corner, and it's very messy, and he might have just cost himself a little bit of time there. 1.5 tenths down at the end, and it was a pretty aggressive entry to that last corner, and it didn't pay off for him. So we'll have to see how Birdo handles it as he begins his flying lap. He's been up there and thereabouts, but has struggled for consistency so far this season. So see if he can put himself in a good position for race one.
He podiumed for the first of the super sprint races at Surfers Paradise earlier in the year, so we know he's got the pace, but it's just like you said, the consistency. For the rest of the time, he's been languishing around 5th, 6th, 7th, and he missed the Casbah Milne round earlier a couple of weeks ago as well, so he's a little bit further down the points order than he'd normally like. He's down in 5th at the moment, but could this be the round where he mounts a comeback? He's looking pretty good so far. He's up more than half a second on Nether's time, and he gets it nice and tight into turn 5 as well, or turn 5A, I should say.
It doesn't, his results don't really reflect his pace, because he has been fighting for the lead with Foley and Xeris a couple of times, but he's just lost the car, fallen off the track, and ended up, usually towards the end of the race, he's had a big mistake and had to settle for 5th or 6th, as he said. So hopefully he can pull it together tonight and get some good finishes on the board. He's 4 tenths up as he comes through the second sector into the S's. That car wiggling just a little bit in their steering, and you're barely through the second. You're barely through turn 9, and you have to start turning for turn 10, and across the line with a 130.5, which is 4 tenths of a second to the better of Nether, puts him up into provisional pole.
Great lap there from Birdo. And just looking at Goofball, he's actually been in the grass a little bit on his out lap, but he seems to have a bit of pace through the last corner, and that's all that really matters here. So hopefully he doesn't replicate his lawn mowing techniques on his actual hot lap. We'll see how he goes. He's looking pretty quick so far.
He is. I'll point it out when I see one of them again. I feel like there are some very triangular strawberry logos dotted around the racetrack. Oh, that's the Canadian Tire logo, I'm being told. Interesting. Not sure why you'd use a triangular strawberry as your logo for a tire company, but nevertheless.
Well, it hooked you in, didn't it?
Apparently, Canadian Tire are like a Kmart store. There's one there on that hoarding on the inside of the turn 5, and yeah, what a bizarre logo. I don't agree with it. I think they should change it, and I doubt they'll listen to me. But
I like this qualifying commentary format. Instead of actually talking about the lap times, we just get angry about stuff that does not matter in the slightest. Goofball's up in the first sector, I think. Maybe he's not. Let's have a look. There's the logo, folks, with some actual text on it.
That's for
never
us to
mind.
look
I thought he was
at.
throwing it up on the screen, and he was actually putting it up on the Discord. So turns out Egg and my face are in alignment. If you want to have a look at that logo for yourself, just use Google. Goofball is very sideways.
Goofball antics right out to the edge of the track, going through the S's. He's leaving no space on the edge of the circuit. He's just pulling it up, and he's only just down at the end of the lap by under a tenth of a second as Bagsy starts his lap.
We've just been
That's a
that
maple leaf.
Not actually a strawberry. The green you can see there is actually a maple leaf. And when our director Stairs was interjecting with that information in the box, I thought he was going to have some important contextual information. It's like, oh, it's not a strawberry. It's actually the ancient symbol of this Canadian province or whatnot. It's like, no, it's just an upside down triangle with a maple leaf on it.
With a maple leaf on it, yeah.
There you go, folks. To learn more about the history of the Canadian Tire logo, just Google it. I don't know. I'm sort of tired of talking about it at this point. Bags has got a lap on, and he's almost at the first sector. Oh, he's down 0.2 of a second. So he's lost a little bit of his practice pace that we saw earlier, but he may be able to make it up in turn 5 and all the way down the back straight. We'll see how he goes by the time he gets to the second split.
At this rate, he would still be in third behind Goofball Antics, which is much higher than he has been qualifying so far this season. His best finish so far has been an 8th, and that was in the feature race at Mundig Flukplatz. And since then, he's been 10s, 12s, 9s. So starting in the top 5 will definitely be a boon to him. And he's actually up through the second sector split, so he must have an incredible straight line speed down that long straight. As you can see there, the Canadian Tire logo in the bottom right of your screen.
I hope we're getting paid for that.
Helpfully provided by our producer Stairs, and Bagsy does go first fastest across the line. So what was he, 2/10 down going through the first sector split into the hairpin? So he must have some, I don't know if he's got just incredible straight line speed down that back straight.
That was a great recovery, and that'll be something to be wary of during the races as well. If there's battles unfolding, as we see Brenton Foley getting very sideways out of the pit lane on his out lap, but we're looking at Resist's hot lap here at the moment. But yeah, that'll be something to keep in mind for Goofball Antics, because that could be the decider at the end of the race if he manages to make a late lunge into the through turn number 3 now, the Quebec corner. I think this is turn number 3. It must be, because he's 30 seconds in, and he's approaching turn 4, which is unnamed on the map that we've got, but he's approaching the first sector split as well, and he's 36.814, just marginally down on Bagsy's time. It's pretty negligible at this point in the lap. We'll see what he can do. We know that one of these lap times can really turn on its head. Oh, he's run it a little bit wide there. Hasn't stuffed up as much as he really can sometimes at that corner. So he's lucky to keep it out of the grass there, because once you're in the grass at that corner, it's basically all over. Destination tyres. But he's still going, still motoring along, and he won't be too far away from the second sector split now as he crosses, as he crests the rise. I don't know. I've forgotten how to speak English. There's a sector split coming up. What does it say? 3.352. I'm forgetting how to speak English. Mad Bird, you want to take over for a minute while I take a drink?
You are doing a fantastic job as always, Matty, and he is indeed up by 0.4 of a second. As I forget to speak English, how to speak English even, my goodness. Coming through the final corner, he crosses the line almost 0.5 of a second faster than Bagsy through that lap, and that was almost all in the last 2 sectors. So a lot of gains happening down that long straight and into the S's. So Brenton Foley now, who was the fastest in practice, can he be the fastest again here in qualifying? These cars seem to have been suiting him, and he's been doing an absolute blinder of a job taking the fight to Xeris, and tonight is his opportunity. If he can take home both wins, he basically reverses the current points sheet, puts himself 77 points in the better to Xeris, where he's currently 73 points behind. So it's very important, and I think he knows it, because he's up by 0.2 of a second coming through the first sector split.
We were talking earlier about how Brenton Foley was getting close to the low 128s, I believe, and we've just seen Resist being the only car so far to make it into the 129s. So Brenton Foley, at this rate, if he carries this on, he should be on for a really, really good lap by the time we get to the end there. Like you said, he was up 0.2 in the first sector. We'll see what he can do in terms of his exit through turn Moss corner, the hairpin at the back there, because that exit is going to be crucial in getting as much pace as he possibly can down here. He's still up only 0.2 of a second. It's still looking good for him. He's still got provisional pole, but it's not as quick as I was expecting from him, but he's still on pole position, so he can't be doing that bad. As he gives us a little bit of a slide through turn number 8 there.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a Brenton Foley lap without putting my heart in my mouth just a tiny bit with some outside antics.
Whee.
And he crossed the line.
Oh.
That is about as close as he would want it to be, 0.8 of a second after a very messy last corner out on the grass. And he tried to make it as exciting as possible for us, and my goodness, nearly gave me a heart attack. Ike Shepherd in the chat is saying, who needs to speak English with cars like these? Indeed, I wish I spoke Portuguese, because then I could probably give a little bit of native flavour to these cars. But that is qualifying. Brenton Foley is your pole sitter.
What a fantastic finish to that lap. It was only 0.8 of a second the margin. I bet he wasn't expecting that much, but that 0.8 is going to put him on pole position with Resist lining up on the second row of the grid. Madbird, is this the race where Resist gets his first win?
Oh, my goodness. Well, yes. I'm calling it now. We haven't even asked for predictions. I'm saying Resistor's going to win in the sprint race, and I guess we'll see what's going to happen in the feature race. Similar to you, Maddie, I also was forgetting to speak English, so I need to grab myself a drink. So I think we're going to go to a quick little break here, and I think we've got some footage from back when we did the Automobilista Supercars Championship Bathurst 1000 of our incredibly complex setup. So we'll hop over to that, and we'll be back in just a few moments.
Hello, everybody. Welcome backstage for the Automobilista Supercars Championship Bathurst 1000 stream, brought to you by Apex Rear Wing. This is just to give you a little look at our setup for the race today. So we've got our big main camera here, which is shooting our desk there. So that's when we're to camera, doing our little wrap-ups and stuff. That's where we're going to be. We've got these lovely green things, just sort of fake foliage to give us a bit of sound muffling, and also some very classy flamingo designs. We've got James behind the camera, currently filming me as I'm speaking. Over here, we've got Stairs currently doing something very important before the stream begins. And indeed, he's got some gaffer tape, so we won't interrupt him. But if you just come over here, you can see the enormous setup that we have. We've got 4 monitors, one of which is a TV, on which you can see Maddie Dunlop and Josh Bagsy. Bagsy's currently completing a Rubik's Cube, so you can see we're intelligent and talented here at Apex Rear Wing. So we've got 3 keyboards. We have got 3 mice. We have got a switcher. We have got 4 monitors. We're going to have 3 computers running. If you just come down here really quick, you can see we've got 1 computer over here, and then we've got another one here, and then we've got a 3rd one over here. So lots and lots of technology back here. You know, the 21st century, isn't it? So, and then through this door over here, if you just have we probably don't need to go in there, but if you just pop over here, James, and just have a sneaky peek through there, you'll be able to see that is our Kart FX bunker, where we've got Michael Zalavari doing some very important work on the whiteboard. So that's just a quick little brief look at the backstage here for the Automobilista Supercars Championship Bathurst 1000, and hope you've enjoyed.
Welcome back, everybody. I am Madbird, and this is Maddie, and we are at Mosport for Season 10, Round 6. And Maddie, are you ready to hear a tragedy?
Always.
I purchased myself a 600 milliliter bottle of vanilla Coca-Cola today at work, and it sat on my desk, and then I ended up leaving early for work because I had a doctor's appointment. And I thought, well, you know, I'll drink that later. And I put it in my bag. Promptly forgot about it. When I went to get my water bottle just now, found my Coca-Cola in my bag, still sealed, but
thank goodness.
But room temperature, and unpleasant to the taste. So
that was a roller coaster. That was. I thought you were going to tell me that it exploded, and I was like, oh no, surely not.
But it was room temperature, you know. It'd be alright if it exploded, but it was at room temperature. My producer is a jack of all trades, editing, producing, and drink chilling prowess. Has suggested that I put it in the freezer, which I might very well do in just a few moments. But I do also have some cold water, so that's the important thing. Why are we waffling, Maddie?
Because it's important to stay hydrated, and I like to let the folks know about that as well. So,
server should be up and running in just a couple of moments. The reason I threw to you to say why are we waffling so that you could explain what had happened, but I threw the ball and it passed through your fingers and hit you in the face.
It did.
But we had a server mishap, and so we're just waiting for it to go back up again. In the meantime, how oh my goodness, how have you been the last couple of weeks, Maddie?
I've been pretty good. Not having any coronavirus cases in Victoria has been pretty surreal, actually. And for any Victorian who's listening, fantastic job, well done. We all got together and we all got ourselves down, and we've got no active cases in the state now anymore either. So triple donuts now, hopefully, for the foreseeable future. You guys had a bit of a scary situation last week, though, didn't you?
We did. Funny, your choice of words of well done, Victorians. We all got together when, in fact, you guys did the opposite, which is what you needed to do in that situation.
Indeed.
Kept yourselves as far away from each other as possible. But yes, we had a spike in cases, the biggest spike since April, and then and then someone who worked at a pizza bar but wasn't meant to be working at the pizza bar lied about whether they were working at a pizza bar or not, and sent the entire state into a panic. Went into the shortest lockdown in history, and we're back to almost normal now. But it was a sort of intense few days, and we've still got a fair few active cases, more than we've had for quite a long time. So I think we got 35 cases, I think 36 active cases, and they did something ridiculous like 18,000 laboratory tests in a single day. Which was like more than they've been doing in the space of a week up until that point. So, yeah, it's been an intense week for South Australia. But you know, we're getting there, and Victoria's shown a very good, been a very good example of, you know, you guys were in a pretty bad situation, and you've managed to pull yourselves back from the edge. So I'm sure we'll be able to deal with what is, in comparison, quite a minor spike in cases.
Geez, imagine that pizza shop worker's name accidentally got leaked to the press. He'd be dead in the street within hours.
I think they legitimately had police guarding the place, like the pizza bar, because they assumed that people were going to be going there to, like, you know, firebomb it or whatever. Yeah. Which, I mean, you know, it's shit, and he shouldn't have done it, etc. But you know, we don't know the whole situation. We don't know his situation. Blah blah blah. So whatever. It's behind us now. It sucked, but we're not in lockdown anymore. And
just bear with us. We've got some words coming in from our producer.
Appreciate it. So our producer is just advising us that anyone who attended Woodville High School must isolate immediately with all members of their household until further notice. And I imagine that there's quite a lot of people that attend Woodville High School, so we could very well be in for some more drama. But a student tested positive, apparently. But in the meantime, moving on from the grim and dreary world of coronavirus, Ike Shepherd just saying, people around the world always think the wildlife is the most deadly thing in Australia. They forget that Australians don't mind them. For example, these drivers. Absolutely. And I mean, when myself and Stairs and a couple of mates of ours went hiking and camping up in the Flinders Ranges a couple of months ago, and we were talking about it at the time, like, you know, people in America are, oh, you know, everything in Australia wants to kill you and stuff, and it's like, yeah, but I mean, like, we've got snakes and stuff you have to look out for, but you know,
yeah, but our police don't want to kill us, so there's that.
I was gonna say, we were camping in the middle of nowhere, and we didn't have to worry about a literal bear walking into our campsite because it could smell some food or something. Like, the biggest our predators get is a dingo, and they pretty much leave you alone, and also aren't found across most of Australia now. So I think the deadliness of Australian wildlife is greatly exaggerated.
Ever since the Emperor Nazi Goreng built the Great Wall of China to keep the rabbits out, it's really been a very peaceful and prosperous time for Australia in terms of wildlife prevention.
A lot of rabbits in China.
In China?
It's an excellent ad. I'd forgotten that ad existed until this moment. We are still having a wait here for the server to go up again. So while you are waiting, why don't you hop over onto Facebook, give us a like and a follow over there, Apex Rear Wing. Make sure you subscribe here on the YouTube channel and like the stream while you're at it. And we don't have the live races, live timing and results up tonight, so just ignore that one for now. And if you feel like giving us $1 or, giving us a coffee a month, hop over onto patreon.com/Apex Rear Wing. It does take quite a bit of effort to put these shows on. And if you enjoy, then we would greatly appreciate anything that you choose to donate to us. Just getting word through. We should be getting going in a soon. Should be getting going in a soon. Should be getting going soon. Just having some fun with Automobilista's files, which we're no stranger to.
Indeed. So apart from Corona, has there been much happening in terms of motorsport over in South Australia lately? Because we've just started to get back on track here in Victoria.
Yeah, we've heard that the Adelaide 500 is not going to be happening again, or at least not next year. But potentially not for the foreseeable future either. I think that's about it. I don't really follow any. Sorry, go ahead.
I never got a chance to get down to the 500, so I'm hoping they do bring it back because I've heard it's a very good event. I think Stairs was having some objections about it last time I brought this up, so I'm weary of getting into the discussion too much because I don't want to hear swearing in one ear while I'm trying to talk.
I've heard, I haven't really talked about it too much with many people, but Stairs is one of the people I have talked about it with, and he hasn't had particularly thrilling things to say about it. I think it's just the same sort of issues that come with any street circuit where you're sort of pressed up against the fence. So the event itself is fine, but the circuit isn't great to be a spectator at because it's basically all you're at the same level as the track, and it's just heavy fencing between you and the cars everywhere.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty unavoidable thing that comes with street circuits. It's good for TV, but for spectators who are just trying to rock up as a general punter on a GA ticket, you can't really see much at all. I experienced the same thing when I went to Newcastle at the end of last year for the first time, and I just couldn't see anything. So great event, a lot of stuff there to do and walk around and check everything out. But yeah, in terms of spectatorship, it wasn't really a great experience there, unfortunately. But down in Victoria, thankfully, we had a little bit more action happening in terms of racetracks. A couple of weekends ago, I was working down at Phillip Island for PIARC, the Phillip Island Auto Racing Club's Access 2020 event, doing some media work for the 944s, which I'll be putting out soon. And I'll be back on track again this weekend for Island Magic, which is a great event that they put on every year with all sorts of categories racing down there. And I think Sandown is also racing the AMRS series will be racing at Sandown this weekend, and they'll actually be open to a very small amount of punters who can go and check that out. So good to hear things are picking up in Victoria.
Yeah, fantastic. I've always been a big fan of Porsche 944s. Not for racing particularly, just I always like the look of them with the long bonnet and stuff. I'm kind of surprised that there's enough of them in Australia, or like enough demand to have like a racing series dedicated to them.
Yeah, they've been around for I think just about 20 years now, and they only came out because they were racing with like sort of a sport car category, and there was enough of them there. There's about 15 of them there at the field, and it's like, oh, we might as well just split off and make our own series. And they've been going pretty strongly since then, normally pulling around 15 cars every race or so. And yeah, there seem to be plenty of them around. We're just getting a few things coming up in TV chat now, so we may have some information about what's happening.
The server is up.
Server is certainly up. Server is certainly up, and we'll be jumping back in soon to bring you some action. But yeah, the Porsche 944s, they provide great racing because the cars are pretty simple, pretty low on power, but they're perfectly balanced 50-50 front, back, left, and right. So it's a really good chance for a driver's perspective to really show your mettle as a driver, particularly if you're up and coming in what are very inexpensive cars to race in. And I'm going to do my job as one of the official media ambassadors of the 944 Challenge. Go check them out, 944challenge.com. If you fancy your chances out on the racetrack, go and give them a squiz and try and jump on in and have a race with us. But I think we're getting ready to get underway for the warm-up session for race one pretty soon.
Yeah, I reckon we are. And speaking of people having differing opinions, Xeris has just hopped in the chat to say that Adelaide is a great spectator circuit and you can get to every section and every corner of the track. So, disagreeing with our producer Stairs there. What was the...
Stairs audibly grimacing in the background there.
It wasn't a 944, I don't think. It was another sort of lesser known Porsche that Clarkson had in a Top Gear challenge once.
It may have been a 928. They were both on the same platform with very similar body shapes. I think the 928 was an evolution of the 944 from the late 80s.
I remember in the sort of early 2010s, during my sort of Top Gear, the beginning of my, I discovered Top Gear. I'd never really watched it before, and then I basically devoured everything up through to season 10 in the space of a couple of months. I remember looking at that car being like, man, that's a really nice car. I might look at buying one of them. And then I looked at carsales.com.au and I thought, oh, never mind. Because I think they were not particularly cheap.
They're not particularly cheap for cars, but for Porsches, they are.
For a Porsche, I imagine they're not particularly expensive compared to, you know, a frog face 911 or something like that.
Yeah, definitely. They're weird. They're front engine rear wheel drive, which is not something you get often in Porsches at all. I think these days they started bringing a few more of them in. But yeah, they've only got little 2-point-something litre 4-cylinder engines that produce about 120 kilowatts, so not a massive amount of power. But yeah, great handling cars, and they get that really nice shape that you were talking about, the hatchback off the back as well. Yeah, really unique. You don't really see a lot of them around, but when you do, they're always nice to look at.
Very good. So, Birdo is sorting out the grid now for the race session. I think we might very well just be skipping past warm-up and hop into the race session. I just saw a particularly funny message in our Discord chat, which is why I'm giggling like an idiot. But nevertheless, we should be off and racing for our feature race in just a few minutes. 20-minute race. So however many laps they can do in 20 minutes plus one lap around this Mosport track. And I was hearing that we should be able to they should just be okay on fuel for the sprint race, but only just. So it might be a little bit touch and go for some people, as we get a very good look of a cameraman who looks a tiny bit like our producer Stairs' roommate Benno. Benno does not have quite as eye-catching a purple jacket as that, but and we've got a man
this with the money. He's looking in two different directions at once. He just needs two cameras and he's laughing.
He does. A lot of professional photographers have multiple cameras because it's easier than than switching out your lenses. You just have two camera bodies with different lenses on them that you can swap between.
Whenever I go down to Phillip Island, with my camera, with my crappy little DSLR camera, just like getting some hobby photos, and I see blokes walking around with two camera bodies strapped to themselves and a lens that's about 3 meters long and a massive monopod with it. I'm just like, oh, why am I even here?
Last time I went to Japan, there was a man carrying his lens. He was basically carrying it across his shoulders, like you see, native tribes in Africa carrying poles with like water hanging off of or whatever. That's how big the lens was, and I sort of I went like, oh, Sugoi, and like gestured at it and like made some impressed faces, and so he pulled me up and he spent about 15 minutes just showing me the most detailed close-up photos I've ever seen of a bird in my life. So that was lovely. But
imagine being a bird and having that shoved in your face. Like, how would you not be terrified?
I mean, I think the point was because it was such a long lens, he didn't need to shove it into their face to get it quite close. But Matty, I believe you have the grid.
I do. I certainly have the grid. Now that we're back on the track for the warm-up, we're just here for the formation lap. Brenton Foley is in pole position by 0.08 of a second, ahead of Resist in P2, with Josh Bagsy starting third. So great qualifying result. Good to see he can back up that practice pace, and he'll be from P3 on the second row of the grid, with Birdo next to him in fourth. Goofball Antics is behind them in P5, lining up next to Netherelmian in sixth, with Roadhog in the hot Marlboro car in seventh position, next to Scott Murrell, who's in P8. Brody, great qualifying result for him in ninth, with Decimage in the other hot Marlboro car in 10th. Irambo is there in 11th, and Zarlingier is 12th. This must be the first qualifying session we've had for a while, where everyone who attempted the lap got one in and no one had any track cut violations.
Yeah, probably. The last few tracks that we've had broadcast on have been a little bit track cut happy as well, which hasn't helped the issues. Resist just maybe doing a little bit of mind games, jumping straight past Brenton Foley on the out lap and just on the formation lap, and just going, look, this is what you're going to be looking at for this race, is the back of my car.
Lets him back through. Maybe
he said that he's now let him back through, yeah.
Maybe lulling him into a false sense of security by the time they get to the race start. You'll notice when they pull up on the grid, folks, that the grid slots are really, really close together here. There's a little bit of stagger between the left and right-hand sides of the grid, but you've only got about 2 meters of space between yourself and the car in front of you. So if you stall or if you get a bad start, you're going to get hit. And because we've got a narrow track here, you're probably going to get punted into the side wall as well. So getting a clean start here is going to be crucial. And the fact that we haven't had a warm-up means it's going to be even more stressful for these drivers who haven't practiced starting here yet. So we may see some fireworks here for the start of race 1. Fingers crossed for good broadcast quality, but hopefully for the driver's sake, they get away for a clean start and we have some great racing.
Yeah, the having to reset the server will also, it probably be negligible, but it will reset the track grip as well. So that will be starting off on a green surface rather than a surface that has had practice, qualifying and warm-up sessions on it, which does improve the grip a little bit, but probably won't matter all that much as they all start to slot into their grid spots. And Brenton Foley has there's an animated waving Canadian flag majestically up on the tower on the start-finish line that is presumably not going to drop because they haven't bothered to animate that particular thing. But looks like we're all on the start-finish line. We've got 4 lights. Lights are out. That was a quick set-off, and it looks like a pretty good start from Brenton Foley and Resist. Both of them pretty much line astern as they go into the first corner, but Brenton Foley is going to have the inside. He's actually having to lift out of the throttle just a little bit. Resist might be able to go around the outside. They're still side by side as they come down towards Clayton Corner, turn 2, but Resist has to dip out of it on the brakes and let Brenton Foley retake that lead.
Great side-by-side action to get underway here. Dieselmage almost got caught up there. He stalled it on the start, but he was narrowly missed by Zarlingier, so he didn't have any accidents there. Big slide from Brenton Foley. He's already hanging it all over the place, trying to make that car as wide as possible, you can say, by just sliding it across the track. But he does maintain first position at the moment. Resist is unchanged in second behind him, with Bagsy third and Birdo fourth. Those 4 are streaking away at the front, and we've only seen a couple of spots being swapped so far down the field, with Netherelmian dropping back a couple of places down to 8th for the time being. But Birdo's still holding them off, and they're side by side through that hairpin there. Scott Murrell's trying to have a look on Roadhog. Nothing doing this time around, though.
Yeah, nothing doing. That was a little bit cheeky. And as you say, the top 4 have streaked away to about a 1.3 second lead over next place man, Goofball Antics. And Brenton Foley with a decent lead going down the start-finish straight, about 0.3 of a second. So Resist won't be able to have a dive on this occasion. And Bagsy doing a good job down there in 3rd place to hold on to that position as Resist gets very sideways coming through turn 8, but manages to pull it up.
As we come through turn number 10, White's corner to finish the first lap. The running order is Brenton Foley in first position, Resist, Bagsy, Birdo, Goofball, Roadhog, Scott Murrell, Netherelmian, Dieselmage, Rambo, Rhodey, and Zarlingier's fallen off the pace quite a bit at the back of the field there, but he's still on the lead lap. We've got 12 runners so far, and they're all still plugging along single file for the time being. Brenton Foley isn't really able to pull away at the front so far. Resist is keeping him relatively honest, but a little bit of a gap is starting to form, but he's got Josh Bagsy behind threatening him all the way around.
Yeah, Bagsy showing some decent pace so far. He's got Birdo all over the back of him, so I reckon that might be a tasty little battle to keep an eye on, as well as Roadhog is actually closing in on the back of Goofball Antics for that 5th position. He's already made a position off the start against Netherelmian, as we've got a nice onboard shot of his bonnet here, right up, coming up behind Goofball Antics, going through that turn 5 Moss corner, and has to settle to stay there for now. But this is a very long straight. The slipstream isn't too effective in these cars, but on a straight as long as this, not that it is particularly straight, there are 2 corners here apparently, it's going to have some effect as he dives for the inside is not even halfway down the straight yet, going through turn 7, this map reckons, down into turn 8, and he's got the inside. Goofball Antics trying to go around the outside, and Roadhog all up on the curb, very messy, but he's managed to make the position very squirrely on the exit.
Great move there from Roadhog, even if it did take a little bit of persuasion for his car to get back in line once he pulled in front. But he's in front in 5th position. That's brought Scott Mull right into that battle, and meanwhile towards the front, Brenton Foley is starting to pull away. He's found an extra couple of tenths on Resist on that last lap, and he's now pulled out a gap of almost 8/10 of a second or thereabouts. Resist now has Josh Bagsy all over the back of him, and he's towing Birdo along.
Yeah, Birdo is almost glued to the back of that Fortnite car. Glued to it like a parent's credit card to a Fortnite loot box purchase. As he tries to go down the inside here at turn 3, and he's almost up alongside, but Bagsy manages to squeeze him out as they go down into turn 4 before the hard braking of the hairpin. Birdo trying to go around the outside through turn 5, and Bagsy forces him to the outside of the track, hits the apex, and it looks like he's managed to hold on to that position, but this is becoming a tasty little battle.
It's a good effort there. Birdo was trying to get a bit of a run on the exit of the hairpin down the back straight, but Bagsy was able to convert that into a block pass and keep him honest there. So they both got pretty similar pace down the back straight, and the lack of slipstream means that Birdo's not going to be able to do much into the S's unless he's daring. We'll see what he can do. He actually has a duck up the inside. Not sure how many body paddles he's got, but he's having a look into turn number 8. They're side by side through the S's, and this is a great move from Birdo if he can pull it off. But Bagsy's going to have the inside line now for the left-hander, but with a tighter right-hander at White's corner, Birdo's going to make it stick. Or is he? He's going to make it stick for the time being. Bagsy trying to get a run up the inside already, but Birdo has put himself onto the podium.
Yeah, Bagsy, he could have had a good run, but he actually had to check up a little bit behind Birdo. Birdo placed his car very well, but Bagsy is still right on the back of him as they come down towards turn 2 and trying to go for the inside. That was a little bit ambitious from Bagsy. Maybe just trying to make Birdo remember that he's in his rearview mirror, but he's already stretched out a car length or 2 against the Midas Motorsport driver.
Well, we've got a retirement back in the field. I think it's Rambo. He's missing a wheel and he's pulled off to the side of the track, and he's going to be going straight back to the garage. I saw some skid marks there through turn number 2, and I wasn't sure what they were from. They may very well have been from Rambo, who has now D and F from the race. We may see a replay of that at some stage, but we do still have this battle for the lead. Look at the gap at the front. It's come all the way back now to about 6/10 of a second as Resist lets a massive slide out, and that gives Brenton Foley a little bit more breathing room.
Yeah, both of them had a bit of a moment coming out of Moss Corner, but it has managed to come to the better for Brenton Foley so far. That gap was over a second, so Brenton Foley must have had a bit of a scruffy lap last time around to let Resist back in as much as he did. We see a replay of Rambo. It looks like it was coming through turn 1, just oversteered and went straight into the wall, and that car just was not going to be turning anywhere, so unfortunate for Rambo.
Yeah, big shame for him. Hopefully we'll see him back in race 2 and able to fight his way back up the field. He's had some pretty decent results so far this season. He's best of a 7th at the feature race at Mendig Flugplatz earlier in the season, I should say. So we know he's pretty quick around here. Hopefully we can see more of that pace later on. But this gap is fluctuating like crazy between the two at the front here. Resist is already back up to around 4/10 of a second. He's all over the back bumper of Brenton Foley, just trying to find the right place to go past. This is where we're going to see a great test of Brenton Foley's defensive driving skills and Resist's best efforts to try and get himself potentially on the winner's step of the podium for the first time.
We've got pretty tight scraps all the way through the field, so we've got a scrap simmering for the lead, although Resist has just lost a few tenths throughout the first sector there over Brenton Foley, who has a very messy entrance to that turn 5. Behind them, we've got a pretty tight scrap between Birdo and Decimage and Bagsy over that 3rd place. Behind them, we've got Roadhog and Goofball Antics having a pretty tight scrap. Behind them, Scott Murrell and Netherelmian slowly coming together, and Rhodey and Zarlingear down in 9th and 10th are quite close together on track as well. So we've got nice battles all the way up and down the field with Decimage, the lonely bachelor, down in 11th place, having had, I think, a accident in one of the earlier laps.
So if your compost bin's looking a little bit empty in your backyard, don't worry, folks. We've got plenty of scraps to go around. We've got a 4-way scrap now for the front here. It's almost turned into a train. Bagsy's fallen off the back of it a little bit, and he may even be threatened by Roadhog and Goofball if they can catch up in the later stages of this race. So it's more of a 3-car train at the front at the moment, and Birdo's all over the back of Resist as well. So this race could go anywhere at this point.
Yeah, if Resist happens to win this race, remember that I called it. If he doesn't, then please don't remember that I called it, as Birdo tries to go up the inside at turn 2, which was a little bit cheeky, but it almost came off for him, and he's again angling for the inside coming into turn 3 Quebec corner, and it's forced Resist very, very wide, but it looks like Resist is going to be able to hang on to that position. But Birdo just putting his car in all the right places. They're actually side by side as they come down into turn 4. And on the way down into Moss, Birdo is still going to have the inside of line, but he's had to slot in behind. Resist goes very wide, but manages to hold on to that second position. They're losing time hand over fist to Brenton Foley, though.
Yeah, this is music to the ears of Foley at the front, while Birdo is piling mountains of pressure on Resist in front of him, and Josh Baggs is licking his lips in fourth going, hello, I might be back on for a podium here. So this race is really heating up right now, folks.
You can, for a second there, I could see first through to 8th in one shot, and we're on lap 6 and almost halfway through this race. So this is an incredibly close field so far in this sprint race here at Mosport. Resist defending grimly against Birdo and holding on to that second position as we speak. Gets a little bit wide in the second corner of the S's, sorry, but manages to come out of it still ahead of Birdo and ever so slightly closer to Brenton Foley ahead. But I think that as Netherelmian sets the fastest lap of the race so far, a 1:30.36, which I'm not sure if that's testament to Netherelmian's pace, or if it's just testament to how hard all of the guys up through the field have been battling. They haven't been able to set a qualifying lap.
Yeah, even Birdo has been, Brenton Foley, I should say, has been really focusing on defensive driving at the front, trying to make sure that no one can get past him, which is not what Roadhog has done, because he's allowed Goofball Antics to slip up the inside at the first corner there, and he's back up into P5, and he's now trying to chase down Bagsy for 4th position at the front. But yeah, this battle at the front is still super, super tight. There's every chance that Resist might just be trying to bide his time a little bit, as we just took over half race time. It's 10 minutes to go now, and we're about halfway through the 7th lap, so we should be on for a 15, maybe 16 lap race. There's his spin at the back. That's Roadhog.
Roadhog around at Moss corner. Not sure if he was helped around or if it was just if he just ran wide and car ran out of grip, but that's most unfortunate. He was up there scrapping for that 5th and 6th place. He's now down in 8th place. That's a big shame for him. As at the front, Birdo now tries to go for the outside coming into the S's as Resist has covered off the inside quite well, and is going to have to try to go for the swap up the inside, but Resist again is defending very, very well. But this is all helping Brenton Foley stretch out ahead. Gap is nearly a second now as Resist goes very, very wide through the last corner. This might be the opportunity that Birdo needs coming down the start-finish straight. Birdo is already ahead as they hit the first corner. Resist tries to tuck in next to him. They're almost bumping their rear quarter panel and front quarter panel together, but are not able to come into contact, which is a good thing for all of us. And Resist has to slot in behind as they go through turn 2. Birdo finally gets that second position.
Yeah, great stuff there. We're just seeing a replay of a sign flying in the background. That was from Brenton Foley, who also ran wide there as well on that main straight. But yeah, Resist ducked a couple of wheels into the grass there, and he just scrubbed off just enough pace that allowed Birdo to pull up alongside, get down the inside and make that pass decisively. And he's already pulled a huge gap of almost 0.8 of a second. So they're starting to thin out a little bit at the front here. And Resist may find himself under threat for that podium position if he gets approached any closer by Josh Bagsy, and now Goofball Antics in 5th behind them. And look at Nether and Scott Murrell. They're still right behind in 6th and 7th. So this is a great battle. This whole field is still really nice and tightly condensed, and it's great to see.
Bagsy's going for the inside to defend as Goofball Antics has a run on him down this long back straightaway, going through what is apparently turn 7 and down into turn 8. He's got the inside line for the beginning of the S's, but Goofball Antics just swoops around the outside as easy as you like and says, I will have that, thanks very much. Bagsy tries to go for the swapper on the second part of the S's and then into the last corner, but I reckon Goofball Antics has it as he gets very sideways going through the last corner. Never mind. Bagsy's going to get a run on him, might be able to get the job done before turn 1, and Netherelmian's got a watching brief on this as well as he's closed right up behind these two.
This is a great race in between these guys. Goofball did a fantastic job to make sure he could get past there as Bagsy was trying his best to defend as well. So great stuff, and Goofball is now up into P4, and Nether is trying to capitalise on the unfortunate pass for Bagsy there as well. who is trying his best to maintain that great run of form that he had throughout practice and qualifying with the pace that he has. And even Scott Murrell in the background in 7th is licking his lips too, trying to get. He's got the lights ablaze. He means business. He wants to get in this battle as well. And this is where the 4-car battle is now for 4th place between Goofball, Josh Bagsy, who's been, I don't know if he's been touched, but he's definitely around. He's going to lose spots here for sure. I think Nether's trying to slow down. Is Nether trying to redress? I'm not sure what's going on there. But either way, Roadhog's just shot on through.
I reckon that's Nether slowing down because he was the one that tapped Bagsy, and so he's slowed himself down to redress the position. But that's going to be cold comfort for Bagsy, who was fighting for a 4th position, now down in 7th. And Zarlingir and Rody, as well as Decimage, are actually closing up on the back of these guys in their battles for 10th, 11th, and 10th, 9th, and 11th rather. So that's unfortunate. We'll see if we get a replay.
Just way too hot from there that we're just seeing from his onboard camera now. And he just missed his braking marker a little bit and just gently nicks Bagsy, but it was enough to send him around in turn 5. But I think Bagsy was going a lot slower than Nether was expecting, as my producer just clued me in my ear there. So that may have been something to consider as well. He may have just snuck up on him like a librarian, if you will, if you're Dennis Cometti, because he certainly does. And that's put, unfortunately, those two down in 7th and 8th respectively, with Nether trying his best to slow down and redress. I'm not sure what the policy is amongst these guys for redressing, because they do have a kind of a penalty system involved where they review incidents after the race. And
we do investigate and we do investigate and vote on penalties and such. But usually, if the driver
Birdo's gone wide.
Oh no, that's a free kick for Resist, who was he was about a second behind Birdo, and then as easy as you like, he's up into the podium, up into the 2nd spot of the podium once again, and Goofball Antics is suddenly looking like he's going to be in 3rd by the end of this lap, as he has an incredible run on Birdo down this long straightaway. They're almost exactly side by side as they come down and into turn 8. So Birdo is going to have the inside line to defend, brakes just a little bit later, and Goofball has to slot in behind as they go through the S's. So a very messy turn 5 Moss corner from Birdo, as we see a very messy S's from Goofball next, dipping a tyre into the grass and managing to hold on to it. Very well done to him.
I don't know what it is about Goofball, but whenever there's a late race mistake to be had by someone in the pointy end of the field, he's always there to capitalise. He's got so many, 1, 2, 3, he's had 6 third place finishes so far this season, and he's almost on course for another one, but he just has to get by Birdo, who is very lucky to escape there, only having lost 1 position and not a couple there. But that means Resist, as he said, free kick for him. He's a 2.5 seconds ahead, but he has another 3.7 seconds up the road to Brenton Foley, who's got his bags, he's checked out, he's cleaned the hotel room, and he is away. So Brenton Foley's leading this race by a country mile at the moment, probably getting close to an actual mile if he keeps his form up. And they're really close here. Whoa! Goofball Antics. Not sure what happened there. I think he just hit the wrong pedal and rotated it.
Very nearly rejoined into Scott Murrell, who managed to avoid him. So very well done there to Scott, who has promoted himself up into 4th place. Here we've got a replay of it. So nice and tidy following Birdo into Moss Corner. And then just rotates, just all by himself. Maybe he just had the loud pedal a little bit too depressed as he was coming into the 2nd apex there, and around he went.
Yeah, so very unfortunate mistake there for Goofball Antics, and that's put him down into 5th with Scott Murrell in a equal best finish position of 4th so far, if it stands. As we see, I'm just trying to find what other battles we have going on at the moment throughout the field. Well, we do have a pretty good one here, but for 4th position, because Goofball Antics hasn't given up yet. He wants that 4th back.
Yeah, he does indeed. And we've also got this battle has been going on down the field between Zarlingir and Rody, has been going on for most of the race. And Zarlingir very nearly just took out Rody, but managed to avoid it. So that battle has actually fizzled as I've drawn our attention to it. So we'll go back to this one for 4th, with Scott Murrell all over the front of Goofball Antics' bumper as he goes very wide through, I think that's Quebec corner. I'm noticing there's a lot of different lines that the drivers can take through these corners that still work out, and it doesn't seem to affect their exit speed at all. It's just very differing lines into the corner. as I'm not sure what happened there. Scott Murrell. No, and he's around again. So Roadhog through and back up into that fifth possession that he relinquished earlier on in the race. I'm not sure what happened there. It looked like Goofball Antics sort of came upon Scott Murrell and wasn't expecting to quite as aggressively as he did, and so had to slow down. As we see that man waving to Birdo as he goes off and into the and what is he taking a photo of? He's shooting the sky.
Imagine paying $50 to get into a race for the week and only take photos of birds. You can do that anywhere, mate. And look, there's something happening on the track and you missed it completely. So I'm not sure what's happened. This must have been earlier when Birdo was running off the track. So Goofball Antics, yeah, I'm not sure what happened there. He must have just got himself a little bit unstuck because he came up on the back of Scott Murrell a bit faster than he was expecting and just sort of fell off the track a little bit. And that's put him down into P6, which is very unfortunate for Goofball. I said he was there to capitalise and make a podium, late race podium charge, but then he went and stuffed it, unfortunately. So there's the commentator's curse working for me quite well. But you were alluding to earlier, corners like this, where we're seeing Goofball go through this nice long banked turn 2 Clayton corner. I think that banking is what contributes so much because you can carry that much more pace on the outside line because you've got the banking there to assist you. So it means you can, really race side by side through a corner like that, which you wouldn't even dare of doing on a flatter track.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely correct, and it makes for some pretty exhilarating looking dives, even if they don't happen to get up alongside. I've seen Bagsy in particular go down the inside. Actually, we've had Bagsy DNF.
Oh, he's retired.
So after that accident, I'm not sure if something else happened that led to that DNF or if he just decided, you know what, nah.
Well, he's missing a wheel from what I can see, so I'm not sure if anything's happened. I'm going to go through the replay for myself and have a look to see what's happened with him. But I was really pulling for him to have a good result here because he qualified so well. And he was falling back a little bit, but it must have been a long time ago. He must have been caught up because I'm in full rewind mode and I still can't find anything that's happened to him yet. Oh, here we go. It was actually on the main straight. He's had an incident all on his own, unfortunately. So he just caught a little bit of curb on the exit, a little bit too much throttle and just ripped his wheel off on the inside fence. So what a shame that is for Bagsy. We may see a replay of that coming up on the screen soon at some stage, but that is a DNF for him in the Fortnite car, which means we have 10 runners on track as it stands at the moment with time elapsed to 0. This is lap 14. It will be a 15-lap race. Here's the replay that I was talking about, and there it is.
Yeah, just lit up his rears and straight into the wall, coming out of the curb wouldn't have helped as he got his left-hand tyres on it and just speared himself directly into the wall. So that is a shame. As you said, he had some pretty excellent pace. So hopefully sticks around for the second race and we can see what he can do from near the back of the grid and see if he can give us some good overtake action. Lick some stamps and send some items, and then wait for 4.5 weeks for them to arrive because Ozpost is complete shambles at the moment.
They are trying their best, of course, with everything that Ozpost does. And what have we got happening at the moment here? So Brenton Foley is 4.8 seconds ahead of second place Resist at the moment, but Resist is getting approached pretty quickly by Birdo, who's only 9/10 of a second behind him. Not sure what pace Birdo's been carrying the last few laps, but big slide there from Brenton Foley. I'm not sure if he thinks he's won the race so far, but he may just be putting it on for the show. This is the last lap that he's just started now. So one more lap to go. Resist may be under threat here from Birdo. We'll see how they go. Birdo's shaved a couple more tenths of a second off since the last time we spoke about him, so we may be on for a late race pass for second place here. Guys, watch this space.
Yeah, watch this space as Resist, who is most likely not going to claim his maiden win, which I definitely didn't suggest pre-race, is currently sitting in second place, and Brenton Foley is just sort of he's stamped his dominance on this race, having extended his advantage out to now 5 seconds. And yeah, Birdo just slowly cruising up to the back of Resist here. I think it might be a little bit too little too late. This is where we've seen everyone coming unstuck through Moss Corner, but it looks like they've both managed to negotiate it quite well. So if Resist can get through the last few corners unscathed, then he will come home in the second spot on the podium. And this is actually our closest battle on track at the moment, I think, between Birdo and Resist. So we'll keep an eye on this one until the end as they come down this long back straightaway under the Canadian Tire bridge there with the upside down triangle and the maple leaf that I thought was a strawberry. And
It does
into
look
the
like a
S's.
strawberry in your defense.
It does. It looks like it looks like a sort of a very graphically designed strawberry as Brenton Foley wins the race. Comes across the line.
Close
ended up
finish
being
there.
A bit of a close finish, yeah, between Resist and Birdo. So maybe a bad exit of the S's for Resist, but still manages to come home on the second step of the podium. Scott Murrell comes home in 4th and Roadhog in 5th.
Goofball Antics made a late resurgence there to try and catch on to the back of Goofball, but he wasn't able to get anything done, and he will finish in P6 with Nether crossing the line in 7th position, so he's got some more points on the board as well. Decimage is circulating back there in 8th position, with Rhodey and Zarlinger still battling it out for 9th at the moment, so this could be another late race lunge here from Zarlinger. Let's see what he can do. There's 2 more corners to go. This is the last apex coming up. He's having a look up the inside. Almost taps Rhodey around, but Rhodey is going to hold on. Oh, Zarlinger's nearly put it in the fence.
No.
He has put it in the fence. Oh, no. But he's crossed
And
the line.
slides across four-wheel drift across the line, but not the way that he'd probably like to.
Win it or bin it is the strat, and he hasn't won it, and he's certainly binned it. So Zarlinger, he has finished the race though, so he has got points on the board. So well done to him. 10 finishers have all crossed the line on the lead lap, and that is race 1 done and dusted. 50 points on the board for Brenton Foley means he is now 23 points behind Xeris for the lead of the championship as we stand after that. Very, very exciting race.
Yes, indeed. And we've got a few Resist fans in the chat. Tyrrell just saying, come on, Resist. And then G-Taz saying, Resist, as in R-E-S-I-S-T, and then Resist. So he's placed himself in the best possible place he can for the second race on the second step of the podium. And Maddie, I believe you have got him in the box.
I do have Resist in the box with me, indeed, mate. We're just waiting for the rest of the podium sitters to jump in, so we will talk to Resist, our second place getter. You look to have some pretty good pace there in the start to hang on to the back of Foley, but he dropped off a little bit, but he did a great job to hold off on Birdo there, and he held on to second place, so well done, mate.
Thank you. Yeah, the only reason I was really able to keep up with Brenton was he was doing some pretty hardcore fuel saving. Which was fine because it meant I had to fuel save because I hadn't really thought about that for this race. So thanks, Brenton.
So how was the fuel looking for yourself by the end of the race then?
I ended up over-saving. I had about 2 litres when I crossed the line.
Okay. So,
Did you get that?
yeah, so you had about 2 litres, you said, by the time you crossed the line?
Yes, yeah. And
Yeah.
I was more worried about tyres towards the end. I was starting to struggle a bit, especially with Birdo bearing down on me.
Well, it looked like you were sliding around a bit. How do you reckon the tyres are going to go? Do you reckon you'll definitely have to make a stop in the feature race coming up?
We'll definitely have to stop. As to whether we have to stop for tyres or not, that's something I'll keep closer to my chest.
A little bit of secret strategy. That's what I always like to hear. Well,
no.
regardless, congratulations on second place, mate. Decent bag of points there for you.
Awesome, thanks.
Moving on now to our third position getter, Birdo. Welcome back to the podium, mate. It's been a while since drinks. You were in second place in Surface Paradise earlier in the season, but you're back in third. How was your pace throughout that race?
Yeah, it felt like it was pretty good. Thank you for having me back on the podium. Feels like it's been a little while, but yeah, the pace was pretty good. Made a little bit of a mistake, which kicking myself over, but what are you going to do, huh?
So, well, you can't really complain too much because you're in third place, mate, and you did a great job to get some nice passing maneuvers done on the likes of Bagsy and Resist in the early stages of the race, and you stuck with him for the whole thing. But the question is, how are your tyres looking by the end of it?
They were alright. The tyres, the rears weren't feeling so great, but plenty of life left in them, so we'll see what happens in the next race.
So, how do you reckon you'll go? Because you've got Brenton Foley to chase down in front of you there. Do you reckon you are going to be able to stick to him and get past him, or will you have to wait to see what pit strategy can do for you?
It's going to come down to strategy. It really is. It's going to be another race that's tight on fuel, I'd suggest. And yeah, tyres really could go either way. Toss up what you're doing. It's going to be a totally different strategy depending on what people pick. So really see what happens, I think.
You certainly will. Well, congratulations once again on your podium position for race 1, and best of luck for race 2.
Cheers, lads.
And we now move on to our winner of race number 1 here at Mosport. Brenton Foley, you're within 23 points of Xeris at the front. And if you keep this form up, you'll be past him in the championship standings by the end of tonight. Congratulations, mate, on the win.
Thanks very much. It's not really how I want to catch him, but overall I was really happy with my drive that race.
How were you going? Because we were just hearing Resist talking a little bit earlier that you were fuel saving in the early stages. Is that sort of the strategy that you were applying for the whole thing, or do you just get more comfortable with your numbers as the race went on and we were able to eke out a little bit of a gap?
Fuel save for probably the first 10 minutes, because I definitely wasn't going to make it on fuel if I didn't do that. But learned a few little things along the way of where I can save and how I can make up time at the same time, because I was pretty happy with the numbers that I was getting.
So the question then is, I'm going to pass this on to you as well. How's your strategy looking for the feature race that we have coming up? Because you'll have to take a stop. Are you going to be employing that same fuel saving and saving time in the box? Or do you reckon you go all out and just burn as much of the stuff as you possibly can?
I honestly don't think that if you went 100% the whole time, I don't think you'd make it on one stop. I reckon you'd need a little bit of fuel saving to get to that 20-minute mark. And then you have to adjust for the last extra lap, depending on when the time is.
Right, folks, you heard it from here. We are in for a very interesting strategic race coming up. I'm sure we'll be seeing you at the front of it, mate. Congratulations on your win once again, and best of luck for race 2.
Thanks very much. Looking forward to it.
Thank you again to all of our podium sitters. Madbird, that was race 1. What did you make of that?
Bloody excellent. Yeah, lots of battling. At one stage, I think I pointed out there were 2 car battles for every position down through 10th. So what more can you ask for? And as we also discussed, lots and lots of differing lines through several of the corners due to their banking characteristics, which make for some very exciting side-by-side runs. What did you think, Matty?
I thought that was great, just seeing how condensed the field was throughout the whole race there as well. And I wasn't actually expecting the racing to be as good as it was around this Mosport track, because it's fast and flowy, which often lends itself really well to motorcycle racing, as you can see with Phillip Island, which is a very similar track characteristically, but it doesn't lend itself too well to cars. But here was great, because you had that banking through the long, fast corners that meant that cars could sit side by side through the whole way there and really just race the whole way around. So it's a great track for it. And the strategy for race 2 is going to be really interesting. Great to see everyone in the chat saying g'day and getting in here. I'm not sure if it was yourself or myself who said Bertie earlier on, but that's triggered a massive discussion about show bags.
I think it was Resist who said Birdie Birdo. And then and yes, it has become the Birdie Birdo show bag, which has been pinned to our live chat. So I'm not sure what pinning it actually does. And then
basically their stick of approval, I think.
And then G-Tuz, of course, Greg Turra, who we miss very much having in our races, saying getting an itchy throttle foot watching, let me tell you, or it could just be fungal.
Mike Shepard saying maybe that photographer wasn't taking pictures of birdies, but of Berties.
I hate it. And Xeris saying he knew a bloke who liked doing mushrooms. He was a fun guy. So obviously
my
Xeris
favourite jokes are the ones that make stairs die a little bit on the inside.
Obviously, Xeris' time off has not affected his dad joke abilities, because my goodness, it was in force tonight. Steve, our producer, can get a shot of this Lamborghini, I think it is, that's sitting in the pit lane. It looks quite out of place right next to the red PBF Race Engineering Castrol Opala stock car from the 80s. There it is. What the heck? And that guy looks very proud of it, if that is in fact his car. I'm not sure he'd fit in it, but
either he looks really big or the car looks... No, I'm not sure what... you can take that the wrong way, but the car actually looks tiny.
The car does look very small.
Probably has a little bit to say with that.
It does have a big spoiler, which
looks like a remote control car.
It does actually look a little bit like a remote. It looks like a Hot Wheels car. Like you'd go to the shops with your mum for your groceries or whatever, and you'd you'd stop at the Hot Wheels section. You'd be like, "Mum, please, it's only $2," and she'd be like, "Oh Christ, all right." And you'd get home and you'd go vroom, and you'd slam it into the wall as hard as you could, and she'd say, "Don't do that," and she'd pull the belt off, and she'd come over and you'd say, "Mum, no, please," and then anyway, so yeah.
You need a minute to talk about things, Madbird.
Nah, I'm kidding. Speaking of strapping, Brenton369 in the chat just saying he's too strapping that backpack with style, and indeed. It's a brave adult that wears a backpack over both shoulders, I find.
You think so? I mean, I do it all the time because I don't want to ruin my shoulders. If you have it on one shoulder, it ruins it because you got too much weight on it. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a dweeb.
I'm absolutely sure it does, but you also look like a square.
I think just wearing a backpack is brave in general, to be honest.
As an adult, yeah. Yeah, it's something that has gone past you, but you nevertheless persist with it. So I think that's to be commended. These guys, we saw this one fella on the right earlier in the first race. He's taking photos of Berties, as like Shepard suggested, and the guy behind him, I think, just standing there with his hands on his hips in what can only be described as abject disappointment in his colleague.
I think he's shitty because he forgot his camera.
Oh, yeah, probably, actually. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, that's a smug face that man is making. He's not even looking at the camera. What does he think he's doing?
Doesn't even need to. He's exuding confidence. Look at him.
he's the sort of guy that can go like to the top of the mountain at Bathurst, not even look, just rapid fire a bunch of shots from his camera and get like a National Geographic Photo of the Year award or something. And that was a very commanding presence, that other man's face. My goodness.
Meanwhile, there's a warm-up session that we completely ignored.
Yeah, we managed to waffle over a 10-minute warm-up session. Very well done to us.
What, 10 minutes? My, how the time flies.
How the time flies when you're talking absolute bollocks. Real stylers wear the fanny bag, says Zerus in the chat. It's very true. So
can't fit much in one though, which is the only problem. But it's fashionable, I guess.
Batman is got a 1,000-yard stare, doesn't he? I think just off to the left of him is the beautifully animated Canadian flag that I was talking about. So see if we can get a nice little pan on this camera shot.
There's an American flag there too, which is really confusing me. You'll see it behind in the same shot as the helicopter flies past there as well. The cameraman's pointing his lens straight at it. It may be left of the current camera that we're looking at here. As we're seeing Des try his best to explore around as the drivers take off on their warm-up lap. We'll find that flag some other day. But for the time being, we do have a race coming up on our hands very soon. And Madbird, you have the grid.
I do indeed. So Brenton Foley closing in on Zerus's championship lead, now only 23 points behind. He had a good race in the first one. Managed to win it in commanding style with about 5 seconds to the advantage of this man right behind him, Resist, who was struggling a little bit with his tyres towards the end of his stint, he said, and believes that we're not going to be able to do the entire race with only one stop. So should be some interesting strategy between these two at the front of the grid. And Resist again, just getting himself as close to Brenton Foley as possible on this formation lap. Maybe just a little bit of psychological warfare, just letting him know that I'm here and I intend to be this close to you throughout the entire race, as he indeed drops away. So well done me. Birdo starting out of third place with his first podium appearance for a few races. So good to see him back at the pointy end, and had a fantastic scrap with Resist and Goofball Antics for most of that race. Scott Murrell behind in fourth place, who had a very good run and managed to grab a couple of late positions from other people's mistakes as well. And Roadhog starting out of fifth place, was showing some decent pace until he had an accident at turn 5, which we are just approaching as we speak, and a corner that a lot of people came unstuck on during the first sprint race. So see if they can survive it this time around. Goofball Antics, who was running in the podium positions but had 2 big accidents right there at the turn 5 Moss corner, is relegated down into 6th place, but we've seen he's got some very good pace in these cars, so can he find his way back up and onto the podium positions? Behind him, Netherelmian, who was also fighting for higher positions, was up as high as 4th at one stage, but had to settle for 7th after a tangle with Bagsy at Moss Corner, which he then relinquished the position, cost himself a lot of time as a result. Samaj in 8th place had a bit of a messy race. Early on had some accidents and had to catch up throughout the rest of the race, but manages to finish in 8th, which is where he starts this race. Rody in 9th managed to hold off the challenge from Zalangir up to the very last corner of the last lap. So hopefully a decent scrap between them for race number 2. Quite a long way behind the rest of them is Rody, so I wonder if he's had a issue with his steering again, because 10th, 11th and 12th have all passed him on track, and he is quite a ways away. Up in 10th, we do have Zalangir, who I just spoke about, had an excellent battle with Rody throughout the race, with Josh Bagsy in the Midas racing car right behind him, and he had some very good pace and unfortunately had an accident with Nether, and then a accident of his own which ripped off one of his wheels. So he starts out of 11th, and Rambo, the only man behind him, who DNF'd on, I think, lap 3 or 4. He starts out at 12th and very nearly swipes the side of Zalangir, who is a little bit struggling to get into his starting box.
Got a quick prediction, Madbird? The lights are ready to go. Brenton Foley. All the lights are on. We're green and we're underway. It's a pretty good start from Brenton Foley, but Resist has a lot of pace as well. They all get away cleanly behind them as they make their way down to turn 1. Brenton Foley's got the inside line, but Resist has the position. They're going to be side by side through turn 1, and Resist is on a blinder. He's going to go all the way around the outside. They're going to be side by side once again as they go towards turn 2, where Resist will have the advantage with that left-hand corner, but Foley's going to power around the outside and retake first position with force. Meanwhile, behind them, we've got Scott Murrell up into P3. It's a great start from him, with Berto behind him in 4th, trying to get up the front, but it is still Brenton Foley leading.
Yeah, Scott Murrell managed to do what Resist couldn't. He went up the inside at turn 2 and made it stick. And now Berto has got Roadhog right behind him for company as well. This is turning into a little bit of a 3-car scrap. And Roadhog dives down the inside at turn 5. That was never going to work. Gets 2 tyres out on the grass, straight into the wall. And there goes his bonnet. And it looks like Netherelmian's cut up the inside of turn 5. I'm not sure if that was intentional, just trying to avoid all the drama, or if that was a mistake for him as well. But Roadhog immediately down and into 12th place. As we see a replay, just way too hot, was not going to be able to stop with those 2 right-hand tyres on the grass, and unfortunately finds himself well down in 12th position.
Well, if the bloke with the camera didn't get a photo of that, he may as well just go home at this point, because it happened right in front of him down at turn 5, and that's put Roadhog all the way to the back of the field. Meanwhile, at the front here, we've still got a nice tight 3-car train here for the lead. So we're still seeing a little bit, probably still seeing, it was hard to tell with only the first lap pass so far. Brenton Foley, Resist, and Scott Murrell being the top 3 guys at the moment. We can't really say what strategy's happening at the moment in terms of fuel saving and tyre conservation. We'll have to wait till the race pans out a little bit as they make their way towards the halfway point, which is when we should start seeing some pit stops.
Roadhog has had another accident and he's torn off one of his tyres, so he is going to be retiring from this race. I'm not sure where that happened, but he is going to be out before he even finishes lap 1, so very unfortunate for him, and he was looking so promising up there in 5th place.
Oh, it's a weird one. I'm just looking at the replay now. We might see it pretty soon, but he just locked a brake big time into turn 8. We're going to see it, and he just went straight on, had nowhere to go, skated across the gravel and into the fence. Bye-bye, Roadhog. There goes his race, unfortunately. So he's DNF'd. Well, he's trying to get repaired at the moment. He's not DNFing so far, so he's trying to get some points where he can, but he's going to be a lap down.
On my screen, it has actually put the wheel back on his car. And Rambo's gone for an excursion at turn 5, down into that ditch, and he's managed to find his way back out again without much damage by the looks of it. So well done to him, but I'm not sure how that had happened exactly.
Yeah, that was a weird one. We'll have to catch a replay, but while that's happening, there's a couple of side-by-side battles, and he's just sort of gone off. He was on the outside, and he just rotated to the inside and nearly went all the way back to the pit paddock on the inside of the track there. So that was a bit of an excursion. While that's happened, we just had Samaj and Josh Baker going side-by-side for P6, and Samaj has come out on top. Meanwhile, behind them, we've got Zarlingear battling with Netherelmian for 8th position as it stands at the moment. So grab your partner, around we go. We've got a couple of nice battles happening in the midfield towards the back as well between these guys, while they're still line astern. Foley, Resist, Murrell in 1st, 2nd and 3rd.
Pigs are beginning to spread their wings and take flight, because Roadhog has actually come out of the pits with 4 tyres, which is not a thing that I knew Automobilista was capable of doing. So he has actually repaired his car, replaced that tyre, and he is back out. He is a lap down, but of course the points do go down further than 12th. So even if he comes home in 12th, he will take on some valuable points. And of course, you'll get the enjoyment of being out there and racing rather than sitting and watching everyone else for the... Oh, although he's gone straight off again, so I reckon he might still have some damage. But still, good to see him back out there. Back at the front here, Brenton Foley has got Resist very much for company, about 0.2 of a second between them. I think Resist said he was a little bit frustrated because it turned out Brenton Foley had been fuel saving quite a bit, so I wonder if that's what Brenton's doing now.
Yeah, it looks like he's just trying to hold everyone up a little bit while still defending as much as he can, because he's created a bit of a 4 or maybe 5 car train here for the lead, with Goofball Antics tracking onto the back there, and I think Decent Badge is going to be catching up pretty soon as well. So he's not letting Resist pass, and Resist isn't letting Murrell pass behind there, and Roadhog has indeed DNF'd. So he's still got damage. He wasn't able to continue, and he would have just been, quite frankly, moving chicane by the end of the race, because he wouldn't have had any pace around the track with the damage that he was carrying. So that's unfortunate for Roadhog. No points scored for him in this second race, and that leaves us with 11 runners.
It was weird because it did put a wheel back on his car, and it was turning and animating and everything, but the way the car was handling was still as if it didn't have a fourth wheel, because it was just skating off at every time he tried to do a right-hand corner. So.
Oh, speaking of Holden dealer team cars shooting off the track, that was Decent Badge. We just got a glimpse of the background. Just absolutely nailed that trackside signage through turn number 2 there. And we'll just see it happening here. I've seen a lot of drivers flirting with the edge of the track limits there, because you lose a lot of traction going over that crest right at the turning point, which is where you need the most stability you can get. And if you get your turning point or your braking point wrong, it's just going to throw you off into the grass. And once you're in that grass, it's so hard to get back on and keep it out of the fence. So he did a good job in that regard, but that's pushed him down to 7th position.
I was going to say he did quite a good job to sort of keep himself calm, slowly turn his way back onto the track. If he tried to turn a bit too sharply, then he would have just put himself straight into the wall. So well done, and he's still in 7th place. And watching this battle, 1st through 5th, you could very, very close. So all of them probably, especially Brenton Foley, fuel saving, as Birdo takes a very opportunistic dive in the S's. Takes that position from Scott Murrell. Fantastic overtake.
Mike Shepard in the chat saying, guys, they couldn't put his wheel back on. It's no nut November.
Oh my God. I think Xeris, you have a little bit of competition in the chat, because my goodness, that one hurt. But Brenton Foley continuing to lead. Here we've got a replay of that move from Birdo. So just supreme confidence up the inside at turn 9. And Scott Murrell had no answer for it, just completely taken unawares.
Certainly was indeed, and that means that Birdo is back into the podium spot. So we see Brenton Foley getting that Chevy Opala as wide as he can possibly make it, but Resist is pulling up alongside. They're side by side almost as they go into turn number 2. Birdo had a huge slide in 3rd, and he's going to lose a lot of pace to Scott Murrell, but he will have the inside line as they go through 5. That was a massive moment for Birdo there. Did well to hold on to it, but he'll be making sure not to do too much more of that as the race wears on.
Yeah, had a huge heart attack. Here is a fantastic slow motion replay. Just gets the back out and then overcorrects just a little bit, has to dab the brakes to get it under control, and Scott Murrell was licking his lips but was unable to get up the outside of turn 5. Might be able to have a dive down into turn 8 at the end of this long straight. He's right up the back of Birdo as they come down, but does not have a dive on this occasion.
That was a classic catch there from Birdo on his save, so he's done very well there. He'll be hoping he can hold on to that for the rest of the race, and Goofball seems to have fallen off the back of this train a little bit as well, which makes it a bit of a 4-car train for the lead, but he's still able to catch up. I think he's just being a little bit more daring, Goofball is, in the braking zones, especially through the S's there. So he's got plenty of pace, but he's just got to try and find his way onto that lead group. As we see Nether posting the fastest lap once again with a 1:30.5. 7-1 as Resist cops the grass on the outside of turn 1 at the exit and nearly shoots across into the inside wall, but holds it together, loses a tiny little bit of room there to Brenton Foley, and Birdo's having a look to see if he can capitalise on that, but nothing much doing here. Very close call there for Resist.
Yeah, and then Resist just sort of ducking and weaving in the braking zone, trying to make Brenton Foley look in his side mirrors a little bit. Look at me, I'm over here. Look at me, I'm over here. Tries to go around the outside, going down and into turn 4. And nothing doing. Brenton Foley cool as a cucumber as they come up and into turn 5. Very close between him and the United Somalian Soviet Republic's driver, Resist, right behind. And we've got a fantastic bonnet shot there of Scott Murrell right behind Birdo as they were going into turn 5. But Birdo managing to hold on to that third place as it stands.
All aboard, folks. We've got a train on our hands, but Brenton Foley is trying his best to pull away at the front. He's almost got half a second on Resist as it stands, but obviously we know that fuel saving is a thing. So maybe this is the point of the race where Brenton Foley's decided to open up the taps just a little bit because he knows he can make it all the way to the 20-minute mark and pit for a full tank of fuel. So we might see him starting to streak away a little bit. So if Resist wants to try and speed up and make a move, it is now or never. Oh, he gets pretty wide there, but so does Brenton Foley. A lot of sliding through the final turn there, and Birdo might fancy a chance for second position. He's going to pull up alongside in turn 1. He has the position, he has the line, easy as you like. Oh, not necessarily. I think Resist has quite a bit of pace around the outside because there's a little bit of banking there through turn 1. They're going to be side by side once again as they come into the left-hander at 2. But Birdo with a little bit of a slide there, a little bit of flourish, says thank you very much. That spot is mine. Birdo's up in a second and Resist is down to 3rd, and he's under threat from Scott Murrell.
He is. The Resist immediately jerking around in the back of Birdo's shot, trying to put him off just a little bit as they come through the first sequence of corners, the first sector of corners, sorry. As Scott Murrell with a almighty dive down the outside, trying to run around the outside of Resist, and Resist just runs him completely out of road and runs off and into the grass to Scott Murrell. So that was a little bit of aggressive defending there from Resist. It didn't look too untoward, but Scott Murrell probably not particularly happy about it.
It was a great idea, poorly executed, unfortunately, for Scott Murrell. Tried his best to make a run around the outside, but I don't think you can really get a move done there, unfortunately. So he's down into 5th, and he's got a lot of room to make up if he wants to get himself back into that lead battle. But pit strategy means anything could happen. Let's have a look at the replay. He just didn't give himself any room, and I think Resist, he hadn't pulled up alongside enough there to Resist, so Resist had every right to make his way to the outside there. And that guy's getting a great photo of the action, as he always bloody is, and that means Scott Murrell is out into the weeds, and that lets Goofball Antics into P4. So he's the beneficiary once again. Resist is in 3rd now, all on his own, with Birdo up into 2nd.
Great battle down in 6th between Josh Bagsy and Netherelmian, who's been setting fastest lap after fastest lap. He's right on the back of Bagsy now as they come through and into turn 2. And he's been, Bagsy's having to go uber defensive through the S's in order to keep hold of that position, because Nether seems to be on a bit of a charge here, currently in 7th, but he's definitely showing some decent pace and would like to be up higher than that.
Yeah, he certainly would. He's got the pace, so we know he can defend once he gets in front of someone, but if he can attack, that's another question entirely. We haven't really seen too much passing from him. He is currently in 7th week. He did start compared to Bags, who's up 5 spots from where he started at the back of the grid. Now, I do need to make mention of the fact that Rambo has DNF from the race. We saw him struggling earlier on the infield of turn 5 there at Moss, and he had a couple of other excursions, and I think he must have copped a wall somewhere and had some damage. So he's out of the race, and we've got 10 cars out on track at the moment as it stands.
Ike Shepherd in the chat just saying Goofball Antics is back up again, and he's still just a little bit behind this 3-car battle for the lead, but he's definitely got a bit of a watching brief, and if these guys tangle even a tiny bit, he's going to be all over them like a rash in a pair of chafy boxes. But hopefully hopefully not something that any of our drivers are experiencing right now, because my goodness, that'd be uncomfortable. But Birdo is putting Brenton Foley under an immense amount of pressure, and I think Brenton Foley still might be just fuel saving just a little bit. Anything he can save now will pay dividends later on in the race.
Yeah, it's a pretty long race, so he's got a bit of time to spare here, just doing his best to hold on to Birdo, and he's really held him up there through turn 2, and that's brought Resist right back into the fray for the race for the lead. And Goofball's licking his lips as well, so we've got a great 4-car battle here as Birdo tries to find an inside line at every opportunity he can get. He's going to go for the outside move around turn 4 here, but he's not going to have the pace to catch up to Brenton Foley and have a lunge into turn 5, so there'll be line astern for the time being. Here's a replay of Rambo's final moment on this mortal coil before he just nosed into the wall and died, I imagine. And that sends him straight back to the garage.
Hefty accident. for Rambo, I believe, is an apt way of describing that. Netherrealmian has managed to find his way past Josh Bagsy and up into 6th place. So see if he can start to cut down this deficit to Scott Murrell ahead. It's currently 2.5 seconds, but he seems to be quite a bit quicker at the moment. So keep an eye on that one as Birdo is trying to go around the outside at the S's. We've seen he's got supreme confidence into this corner here, turn 9, but at this point, Brenton Foley covers it off and is able to hold on to that position. Notice that everyone is dabbing the brakes going into that final corner except for Brenton Foley, who does not appear to realise that the brake pedal exists and instead is just swinging the back in to slow the car down, and so far it seems to be working. Although, as you can see from this fantastic onboard shot from Resist right behind, Birdo is trying to get up alongside. They're both flipping the back out and unable to get past each other, and Resist is all over the back of Brenton Foley now, just trying to take any advantage he can to get past Birdo as Brenton Foley gets sideways coming through turn 3 Quebec corner, but he's going to have the inside into turn 4.
This is great racing from the leading pack here as they go side by side once again. Birdo's not going to be able to make a lunge, but look at Scott Murrell. He had an off earlier and he's already back up into P5 right on the back of this train, so he fancies a look as well. This is unbelievable. This just shows how much Brenton Foley is trying to resist Birdo behind him and resist behind him. There's just so much pressure being piled on all the way up and down this train, and the racing is absolutely fantastic. Brenton Foley's got a little bit of breathing space behind him now, but we'll probably see that disappear in an instant.
Yep, so we're about 5 minutes away from the halfway part of this race, which is when we would probably be expecting people to start coming in if they're doing a single pit stop, which we are thinking most of them will be with a bit of fuel saving. Xeris in the chat just saying, now this is pod racing, as Brenton Foley goes as wide as you like through the last corner, giving Birdo all the opportunity he needs into turn 1. He's going to have the job done, but Brenton Foley is still alongside of him, might be able to hold on to the position. He seems to have just supreme pace at every point around this track, and he holds onto the position going into turn 2. That is some incredible racing from Brenton Foley.
How the hell does he do that? He was fully sideways through the final corner and just lost no pace. Oh, we've just seen Netherrealmian going into the fence behind there. What a shame for him, because he was doing really well in P6.
Gutted. Yeah, he was doing a fantastic job. And that what you've said then is
decent match as well.
Decent match as well is into the fence. Looks like it's at the same spot where he managed to avoid the fence earlier on. This time around, he's got some damage. That car is not looking particularly happy, so some damage there for probably Netherrealmian and Decimage, unfortunately.
Birdo's had a moment at the exit of Moss there, and he's let Resist come alongside him as they run down the back straight. Resist won't have the line, but he will have the position. He may even be able to pull ahead of Birdo as they come into turn 8. But we know you can still be quick around the outside of turn 8 and pull in front. They're really drag racing at the moment. It's hard to tell who's going to be getting out in front, but they're side by side. Resist, he's going to get just passed back again by Birdo, who holds on just. And it'll be line of stern through turn number 9 and 10 as they make their way across the start-finish line. And here's Decimage in the exact same place as Nether. Had the same sort of moment as he had earlier, but he just couldn't keep it out of the fence. That's quite a hefty impact, actually.
Yeah, a little bit of funky geometry or something there at the tyre wall. And he has, in fact, DNF'd from this race, has Decimage. So that's unfortunate for him. That is both VFEF. Oh, my God. Whatever their team is, both of them are out of the race. And that is not what we like to see. But at the front, you can see just how close it is between Goofball Antics, Resist, and Birdo. And even behind Goofball Antics, Scott Murrell, who was about 2 seconds behind this battle, has closed right up in the last lap or so. And he's right on the back of Goofball Antics as they come into turn 5. And what you were saying just before, Maddie, about how Brenton Foley has a bit of a habit of going completely sideways, four-wheel drifting, and somehow not losing any pace. Incredibly frustrating to drive against.
Yeah, I can only imagine. It's something fantastic. I've always seen whatever series we've been racing in, he's always found a way to slide these things around every corner, and he's always found pace with it as well. He just loves to oversteer, and even tells us he doesn't even try to do it. That's just how his driving style works. So you can't really fault him on it because whatever works for him, I guess. And now he's even able to pull out a little bit of a gap at the front. I'm guessing he's putting in a big couple of laps before he reaches the 20-minute mark. And Goofball lands with the first driver to bite. That's an early pit stop for Goofball. Hopefully he hasn't pitted too early and he'll be able to conserve to the end of the race. But he's withdrawn from this battle for the time being. We may see him pop back up again once the rest of these guys coming for their stops. But for the time being on track, it is a 4-car battle for the lead.
Yeah, and Goofball Antics has got a bit of a history in Apex Rear Wing of short fueling or being very marginal on fuel at the end of a race. So at this stage, with over half the race to go, he's probably going to be very much marginal on fuel at the end, even with some fuel savings. So that'll be interesting to see.
He didn't take he did take a stop. It was only a very brief stop. I'm not sure what happened there because it was in the box for a very small amount of time. I'm not sure if he just took some tyres or a brief splash of fuel. He may not even be pitting for tyres at all. I didn't see the car go up. So I think he's just coming in for a very quick splash of fuel. He may even be trying to two-stop this one, which is a strange strategy to say the least.
It is, but you know what? You might need a strange strategy to get yourself onto the podium today because we have got some very, very fast guys up here fighting over those podium positions. And how about Scott Murrell? He is only just behind Resist, under half a second between them as they come down and into turn 8. And he had a pretty hefty off at turn 5 and was basically checked out of this battle and has managed to drag himself back into it. So he's clearly got quite a bit of pace, in addition to the drivers in front of him doing a bit of fuel saving. As Brenton Foley, it looks like he might have decided to put the hammer down as he slid sideways across the last corner. He still set the fastest lap of this race.
I honestly thought he was going to crash in the final corner there, and he just went and set the fastest lap on me, didn't he? And he's using all the ride and a little bit more on the run into turn number 2 here, so he knows how to be fast around here, cutting across the inside of the white line of the track there. I think everybody's doing that. There's no real track limit enforcement around this Mosport track, so it's not proving to be too much of a hassle. But now Berto's caught right up onto the back rim. It was pretty rough there. He's lined through the Quebec corner at turn 3. So Berto, he still hasn't had a chance to challenge through turn number 5 at Moss because he just isn't able to get close enough to Brenton Foley through this section here. He's pulled up right onto the back rim, but he just can't have a lunge. So that's going to be something that Berto's going to try his best to do as Brenton Foley has a bit of a slide out of that corner, and they're still running line astern, bumper to bumper from first down to 4th position or near enough to it. It's great racing.
Yeah, I think Brendan Foley seems to have a very good line through turn 4 that always gives him about a car length, 2 car lengths as they go into the heavy braking zone at turn 5, and it's very hard to make a position through turns between the 2 apexes of turn 5, which is where he seems to struggle a little bit. Everyone sort of closes right up on him through that section, and then they're right on the back of him as they come out onto the straight, but they aren't able to get the job done. So he's very good at being quick in the places of the track where he needs to be, and he can sacrifice a bit of speed in places where he doesn't need to be and not pay any price for it. So he's soaring at the wheel going through turn 1 there, as Berto with it a very good run on him into turn 2, but just no space or time to do anything with it.
Yeah, these two at the front have been putting in blistering pace over that last lap, and they've actually pulled ahead of the guys in 3rd and 4th to the tune of about 2 seconds already in that last lap alone. So Resist is now doing his darndest to hold off Scott Murrell in 4th for the battle for the last step on the podium. Meanwhile, these two at the front have paired off and they're racing hard for the win. Brenton Foley is still sliding all over the place. His tyres have probably seen better days at this point. Not sure if he's going to be coming in to change them anytime soon, as Berto misses the apex into the first part of Moss there and runs it a little bit wide, so he's already lost a second to Brenton Foley in front of him. So he can breathe a sigh of relief. And we're over the 20-minute mark at this point already, so we should start seeing some other drivers coming in for pit stops. I'm just seeing Netherelmian pulling out of the pits, Zarlingier's box, Rhodey's in the box at the moment as well. So I'm not sure what's happened with the other guys further behind, but we know that Josh Baggs is up into P5 at the moment. So I'm going to hazard a guess and say that he has not pitted yet either. So the top 5 are still yet to pit. Everybody else behind them has.
Yeah, I believe you're absolutely correct. I've been trying to keep an eye on Goofball Antics' pace, and he hasn't been setting the timing screens alight with his fresh load of fuel. As Berto ducks into the pits, as does Scott Murrell. So 2 of our 4 lead runners diving into the pits, and looks like Berto at the very least is up on the jack, so very well might be getting some fresh tyres. I know that Brenton Foley and Xeris have been saying that they haven't been bothering getting fresh tyres because they've just been able to race pretty decently on the worn ones, but some of our other runners might think that the fresh rubber will be worth it. Xeris saying it's like watching Moto 3. It is. It's like a big squaggle of runners all in one spot. As it looks like Goofball Antics has managed to keep that position over Scott Murrell. I don't think Scott Murrell was ahead of him before the pit stops.
Birdo's a huge way down, and Goofball Antics just pants to the both of them, and he's made his way up into 4th position by virtue of his much shorter pit stop and Birdo's much longer one. So he's taken a lot of fuel, and he may just be trying to go hammer and tongs all the way to the end of the race here on a full tank, but he may have accidentally overfueled it. So we'll have to keep tabs on that and see where he goes in terms of his pace from now on. But you are going to have a race here for 4th position between Goofball Antics and Scott Murrell, given that Goofball Antics is still going to be a little bit slow. He'll have a little bit more weight on board than Scott Murrell does at this point because he's fresh out of the pit lane, or actually that's the other way around. Scott Murrell's the one who just pitted, so interesting battle there that'll be shaping up. But Bagsy, for the time being, is up into 3rd. The gap at the front is 3 seconds already as Brenton Foley comes in for his pit stop. Is Resist going to follow him in? He certainly is. So the top 2 guys are into the pits now, and I imagine Josh Bagsy in 3rd won't be too far away either.
Yeah, so that is all of our runners except for Josh Bagsy in the pits, and Bagsy indeed is peeling into the pits as well. So that's interesting.
That's
I wonder
a great stint from Bagsy, I've got to say, because everyone's on even pit stops now, and Bagsy is now on par with the guys in 1st and 2nd in terms of pit strategy and on-track running. So I'm not sure where they're going to rejoin in relation to the rest of the field here, because that means Goofball Antics will now be in the lead of the race by a long way, and not a huge amount. Oh, Foley's actually come out ahead, so I've completely misplaced where Foley was in the pit lane. So you can please pardon me for that one, but Foley is now 3 seconds ahead of Goofball Antics. Still, that's a great benefit for Goofball. I'm not sure if he's got enough fuel in that car, though, but I guess we'll see as the race goes on.
And Resist just exiting the pits now with Birdo coming around the first corner right behind him. So I wonder if Birdo has changed all of his tyres as well, perhaps, hoping that that'll give him some extra pace towards the end of the race. But in the interim, it's cost him dearly. He's now 5th out of the top 5 that we've been watching so far. And Resist as well is quite far down, now 20 odd seconds behind Brenton Foley. So perhaps both of them changing all of their tyres, because we did hear Resist say in his interview that he was struggling on tyres at the end of the first race, and obviously this race is twice the length. So both of them going a little bit wonky through turn 5. So maybe if they're new tyres, they'll obviously be quite cold. So that might very well be what has happened.
Yeah, it certainly could be indeed, and it's really opened up the strategy here. The really interesting to see what happens is they are now pretty thinned out, so I think this is a good chance to take a bit of stock take. So Brenton Foley in his very sideways self is currently leading the race by 2.2 seconds over Goofball Antics, who pitted very lightly there, so we'll see what he can do in terms of conservation. Scott Murrell is running in 3rd position, which would be his best result so far in Apex Rear Wing, beating his previous best of 4th. 4th position is currently held by Resist, who's doing his best to hold off Birdo behind him. So those two are having a great ding-dong battle at the moment. Behind them in P6 is Netherelmian, who had an off-track excursion a little bit earlier. But he's still running pretty well in P6 with Josh Bagsy behind him in 7th. Not as high up as he has been this race, but still a great recovery from where he started down in 11th position as a result of his crash in the first race. Salangira is in 8th as it stands, with quite a long gap behind him to Rhodey of 20 seconds, who is the last running driver on track. Desamaj, iRambo, and Roadhog are all in the pits, having not finished this race. And now there's a pretty tight gap at the front, actually, between Brenton Foley and Goofball Antics. He's brought it back to a 2nd. So in the interim there, I reckon Foley must have made a slight mistake.
I think he had a bad run out of turn 5 onto this back straight, which has allowed Goofball Antics to close up. Still just over a 2nd is the gap, but it is coming down, and Goofball Antics has now got he now has the carrot dangling in front of him. That carrot being Brenton Foley. Sam Smith not here to take advantage of said carrot, so Goofball Antics, who often practices and drives with Sam Smith, taking the opportunity instead. So you can see how aggressively Brenton Foley takes that last corner. He brakes and then just slings it in. It's almost like a Scandinavian flick as he goes through the last corner, but it seems to be working for him. That gap, 1.2 seconds at the front. Zero saying they left new tyres too late. A few laps earlier would have taken more advantage of the pace, said Zerus in the chat. So
here's a battle here for P4 at the moment. Birdo's up at the inside of Resist as they go through turn 1. They're still side by side because Resist can carry just that little bit more pace around the outside, and he will have the line going into turn 2. But it's a similar situation on the outside here for Birdo. He may be able to take it all the way to the end of turn 4 into 5 here. And Birdo's actually come out the victor from that corner in particular. He's going to have the line as well as they go through the Quebec corner, and Birdo has won that battle for the time being. So he's up in the 4th position.
Yeah, Resist just had to sort of concede that one. It was actually a little bit... I was expecting that side-by-side to carry on for a little bit longer, but Resist was just not able to stick with Birdo through turn 2.
Well, here we go. Oh, he'll try to have a look, but there's not much you can really do there, unfortunately. But Birdo's run it wide, and he's pulled it back in just in the nick of time. There may have been the slightest little iota of contact between the two, but nothing wrong being done there at all. And they press on as usual all the way down the back straight, and Birdo still has the position.
That must be very frustrating for Resist, seeing him have the issue, but then you immediately go into another tight right-hander. So the fact that he's going very slowly doesn't actually mean anything.
So as we stand at the moment, there's still a bit of a gap between Brenton Foley and Goofball at the front. It's expanded out to a 2.5 seconds, so not much of a battle is happening there. That is something that'll start shaping up with just over 10 minutes to go towards the end of the race as fuel and tyre degradation start coming into play once again at the end of this stint. So Birdo's still doing his best to hold off Resist, but he's pulled a bit of a gap to the tune of about a second now, as a matter of fact. So not a huge amount of battling happening out on track at the moment. We've got a pretty close race as well between Nether and Bagsy for P6, but there's again about a second between those two. So at the moment, everyone's sort of rank and file, just doing their best. They're mostly just racing themselves at this point, trying to get the best lap times out they possibly can, despite the car and despite fuel and tyres that they have at their disposal at the moment. So it's a real challenge for everyone to sort of eke out as much life from their consumables as they possibly can.
Over the top 5 cars. They're now spread over about 20 seconds worth of track, with Resist being 17.7 seconds behind Brenton Foley, and lots and lots of space between them. But those differing strategies will probably start to come together towards the end of the race. But as Zero said in the chat, they may have left those new tyres just a little bit too late, because they're not going to have quite as long to take advantage of them. So even if these guys at the front, their tyres start to drop off, they might not be dropping off quite enough for for Birdo and Resist to take advantage, if they have indeed changed their tyres, which we think they have.
So that could play into the hands of Goofball, because he indeed pitted early, but I'm not sure if he took tyres indeed. I'm guessing he would have, because it seems like everybody else is doing the exact same thing, but it's really hard to tell. We don't have really timing in front of us so we can check pit stop times or anything like that, so we're just kind of guessing at this point.
I reckon Brenton Foley, Goofball and Scott didn't take tyres, because they've pretty much stayed equidistant on track, whereas Birdo and Resist are the two that were amongst that battle but have dropped about 10 seconds. So that sounds like about a tyre stop to me in terms of additional time. And Scott Murrell seems to be starting to struggle a little bit on pace, which may suggest that his tyres are starting to get a little bit second-hand, as we've got now under 8 minutes left in this race.
Yeah, I think you might be right there, as Brenton Foley is now pulling a bit more of a gap on Goofball Antics, although still pretty consistent at about a 1.5 seconds between those two there. So still pretty thin. Goofball Antics will be happy with where he finishes up here in second, but he's sort of a bit out of the championship running, because we've got to look at the points as well. So after this race, Brenton Foley will almost surely be ahead of Xerus in points, unless he has a drastic mistake. Touch wood that he doesn't. But Goofball Antics is a long way behind. He's 238 points behind the leader at the moment. So he can't really... He's a bit out of the championship battle at this point. He can still theoretically win, of course, if Foley and Xerus have disastrous weekends or rounds coming up, I should say. But for the time being, I think for Goofball, the priority is getting a win where you can, because you always want to have that golden number 1 somewhere on your championship statistics sheet at one point. Even if you can't get the championship, it's always good to have a win under your belt or two in whatever car you're driving. So at the moment, it's 5 wins the way of Xerus and 5 wins the way of Brenton Foley. And for quite a while, they were both, up until the start of Casbah Mill, and they were both even on results. They both had 2 wins, 2 seconds, and a fourth. 3 wins, 2 seconds, and a fourth. And they were only differentiated on points by the difference in the points format for the different races. But now, with this longer feature race, there's 100 points on offer for Brenton Foley here if he wins, or for any other driver if they win. So it'll be a good result for Brenton Foley. It'll put him up to, the margin will be, I think, 77 points. 77 points will be the gap if Brenton Foley does hold on and win this race. So it'll be a very good buffer to have in hand as we come across the line now. And in that lap I was just waffling on, the gap has decreased between the two at the front by only 0.2 of a second. And with only 5-6 minutes to go, doesn't seem to be a huge amount that Goofball can do unless degradation starts playing a part, which I imagine it will very, very soon. Moving down the field, Scott Murrell's in a very lonely third, with Birdo and Resist still 4th and 5th, with a little bit of a gap between themselves. Nether and Bagsy still P6 and 7, with Josh, with Zalnagir, I should say, 8th, and Rhodey running in 9th. Madbird.
Very well done. You gave me the opportunity to screenshot a particularly funny comment and put it in our Slack channel. And I just got to listen to the dulcet tones of your voice for quite a while, which is very enjoyable indeed. I was about to draw our attention to that Birdo and Resist battle, but as just before you mentioned it, Resist had a pretty messy last corner and so lost a lot of the time that he had gained. It was under a second between the two of them, but has now ballooned out to 1.6. So if they have indeed changed tyres, that strategy does not seem to have worked out particularly well for them, as they are still roughly 9 seconds behind third place man Scott Murrell, who is staring down the barrel of his first podium in Apex Rear Wing, which I'm sure he'll be very excited about. Good to see him in the interviews if that does indeed become the case.
Sounds like you got a new commentator's curse coming up for yourself, Madbird. Whenever you try and draw attention to a battle, it immediately fizzles out.
I'll be looking at it, and my mouth will open to say something, and yourself or Stairs will say something, and I'll close my mouth for a second, and in that second that I've closed my mouth, the battle will fizzle out, and I'll be like, well, I'll draw attention to it regardless, because I'll say I was about to draw our attention to this battle, but then this happened, which I'm sure is incredibly interesting for all of our viewers. But regardless, Scott Murrell is beginning to struggle a bit on those tyres, I think. So he had a bit of a hairy run through turn 2. He managed to keep it on the track just as we're watching. Bagsy has suddenly decided to kick himself into gear and is catching up onto the back of Netherelmi, and the gap is now under half a second between the two of them. So Bagsy did pit quite a lot later than Nether, and Nether pit a little bit earlier on, and then Bagsy, of course, was one of our last ones to pit, along with Brenton Foley and Resist. So might be starting to come to him here in the last few minutes of this race.
While we're just watching this battle for P6, I think Brenton Foley's tyres are really on the way out. I've been watching him struggle all the way around the track this whole lap. You might have heard me let out a chuckle or a guffaw, if you will, at a massive drift that Foley let rip through turn 1 on the last lap. And he was able to hold it together, as he always does. That absolute tin ass when it comes to car control. I don't know how he does it. But he's sliding all over the place. He had a bit of a moment on the exit of turn 5 as well. So I think his tyres are just on the way out. And Goofball has pulled the gap to under a second. It's now 0.8 roughly. But there's only 2 minutes 46 to go, which will equate to 3 laps. So this will be a 28-lap race with the timer of laps plus 1 extra lap. So can Goofball catch him at the front? Can Bagsy catch Nether for P6 as well? There's a couple of battles we're keeping our eyes on. What else is getting narrower here? I think Birdo is really pulling away from Resist. That gap is 2.2 seconds, so that battle is just about done and dusted, but we'll keep tabs in case anything unfortunate happens in terms of mistakes. But at the front, the gap is now down to just over 0.6 of a second, so Goofball's really got the pace, and Foley is struggling.
Yeah, it's he is good on worn tyres as he goes very wide on the exit of turn 5. That might cost him a little bit of run down this straight. He might still be okay. But Goofball Antics is just slowly easing up onto the back of that PBF Race Engineering car. And Brenton Foley's very good on worn tyres. He's very good with sliding, but this is a very long race to do. on old tyres and quite a lot of very, very fast, intense turns that he's doing quite a lot of steering input around. So it's not an easy track on the tyres, and he's beginning to feel the consequences of that as he gets a little bit sideways coming through the last corner. Nowhere near as bad as we've seen from him, but he is slowly losing time to Goofball Antics behind. As we see Bagsy right on the back of Netherelmi and coming down the back straight and into turn 8.
Nether gives him a lot of room, but Bagsy's not going to take it. He's going to sit tight in 7th for the time being. Nether just had so much more pace around the outside there. So that battle's still raging on, which is great to see as they come towards the 1 minute mark. There will be 2 laps to go when they cross the line. And at the front, Brenton Foley's actually pulling that gap out once more. So it's over a second once again. So let's focus on this battle for a little bit longer here between Netherelmi and Josh Bagsy, because these two are in a great scrap, although that gap has already come out again to 8 tenths. So here's me trying to draw attention to the battles that aren't happening anymore. But anything can happen, especially with the state of the tyres that they're in now.
Yeah, you can see how much of his tyres he's leaving on the track, even going out of turn 5. So they will finish this lap, and then there will be 1 lap more. Oh no, sorry, they will finish this lap, and then there'll be 2 more laps for them to do, because they will not cross the line before this 15 seconds elapses. As we keep an eye on this battle between Nether and Bagsy coming through turn 5. Bagsy very close on the back of Netherelmian as they come out and onto the back straight.
It will be a 27 lap race, I believe, because the time is just elapsed now, and Brenton Foley hasn't crossed the start-finish line. He does so now, and it will be the final lap now, lap 27 of 27, as we're just seeing a massive skid mark going the whole length of the main straight. Don't know what that's about. It must be a glitch with Automobilista, I think. And that battle has thinned out a little bit at the front as well. So it's Foley leading Goofball Antics. Scott Murrell is in a great 3rd position at the moment, holding really steady. Berto is 4th, 2 seconds ahead of Resist. And meanwhile, for P6, we've got this great battle that's still raging on between Nether and Bagsy. Bagsy has 1 more lap to try and make his way up 1 more spot to P6. Can he do it? Let's see what he can do.
Yeah, this I think the lead is well and truly decided. It's now almost 2 seconds between the two of them.
Zallinger was just off the track there.
Yeah, giving them as much space as he possibly can. So as it stands, we've got Brenton Foley in 1st with Goofball Antics behind, and as mentioned before, Scott Murrell currently sitting in 3rd on line for his first podium. Berto is slowly closing him down, so those fresh tyres have come good, but just too little too late by the looks of it. And unless Scott Murrell has a absolutely awful run through the S's, he should be safe from Berto behind. We watch Brenton Foley come on down into the S's, and Bagsy so close behind Nether and goes completely wide, bowls it very wide at turn 5, and I think that might put paid to his challenge for the rest of this race.
Not necessarily, because he'll have a good run down the main straight. I think Zallinger's got damage because he's still down there. Brenton Foley crosses the line very sideways. Here's our winner of race 2, with Goofball Antics finishing a fantastic 2nd position for him. Great job there, as we see Scott Murrell crossing the line to take his first podium, with Berto very close behind him. So I think Scott Murrell must have made a mistake there. So 4th for Berto, 5th for Resist, and we still got this battle for P6 at the moment. Bagsy's still a little bit closer, so Nether just has to make this 1 more corner, and he'll have P6 locked away in the bag. Great result for him, for Nether, and Bagsy is up into 7th position, which is his best result so far this season. Great job from him.
So Zallinger has actually lost a tyre at somewhere around the track, so he's limping home with 3 wheels on his wagon. He's only got the 1 corner left to run, so he might as well get there, and he has done so. And Rody, the only other runner in 8th place ahead of Zallinger, has finished as well. So very well done to everyone. Looks like Scott has removed one of his wheels in triumph of getting his first podium. My goodness, that all sort of kicked off right at the very end, didn't it, Matty?
It really did. All of a sudden Foley was crossing the line to win, and everything else is happening at once there, and Zallinger was off with 3 wheels on his wagon, and Jesus, all happening as it always does in Apex Rear Wing. That was a great finish to that race.
It absolutely was. I have got the absolute pleasure of being joined by our podium sitters. So for first, I will go to our Scott Murrell, who, while he was in third, he was his first podium in Apex Rear Wing. Absolutely cracking race, Scott. Very well done.
I'm knackered.
It looked like it. Very well done. It didn't change your tyres in the pit stop, we guessed, and then Birdo behind did, and so was slowly catching up to you right at the very end of the race. How was that pressure?
Yeah, you should have heard him in chat. There was a lot more pressure there too. No, the biggest problem for me was my steering rotations doubled somehow. So I turned the steering wheel 30 degrees. I've got over 90 degrees rotation in the car. So when I was getting sideways, I'm really turning the wheel to try and catch it. And absolutely knackered myself doing it.
I can imagine. My goodness, yeah. So definitely a sweaty night in the cockpit for yourself. But your first podium in ARW, it's been very good having you along. We hope you've enjoyed yourself. How have you found ARW so far?
Fantastic. Love the boys here. These cars are absolute trash. So a couple of the tracks we've been to quietly, but to be honest, this track and these cars are a perfect match together because I've thoroughly enjoyed it tonight. Yeah, not sitting there wanting to beat my head against the wall as like I do most nights.
Very good. That's what we want to hear. Well, congratulations on your first podium, and we enjoyed watching it just as much as you enjoyed racing it tonight. So very well done.
Thanks, boys.
And on to our second place man, Goofball Antics, who's back on the podium again after his third place at Laguna Seca last week. Very well done, Heathy, and it looked like a bit of a decent strategy call. You dived into the pits early and you managed to close in on Foley right at the very end.
Lads, I said to the guys before, I feel like I could do about 50 press-ups. I feel good. It was a decent strategy. It wasn't decent. It was a brilliant strategy call. That was the call of the race. It's you couldn't have made a better call. Foley maybe, but I enjoyed that. There was a little bit of. I employed a little bit of psychological warfare there. You know, quiet word to Foley. Hey, tyres feeling Foley. Mine are feeling good. How yours feeling? Good. Yeah, sure. Yeah. So just a little bit of a niggle here and there to get the guys behind thinking and panicking. And yeah, Madbird, what was your favourite part of the race to call?
Favourite part of the race?
Jeez, he's doing an interview in here.
Yeah, who is asking the questions? I'm happy to answer it. The first stint before the pit stops, when the top 5 cars were running close enough that you could throw a blanket over all 5 of them, was bloody excellent to watch and talk over. Was that as exciting to race in as it was to watch?
Oh, I was taking that part a bit easy, It's a relaxing Sunday. Well, it's not Sunday, it's Wednesday, It was a relaxing Wednesday evening drive. Save a bit of fuel, make some lap times, work out some strategy in the head, and but no, I really enjoyed that part of the race. Maddie, what about you? What was your favourite part of the race to call there?
I got to agree with Madbird there. I reckon that was pretty sensational to watch. So it was a good effort, and yeah, geez, are you going to be calling the races from now on?
I might have to, It's lovely work. Producer Stairs. Stairs, is there any transitional moment that you're quite proud to have caught in time?
His producer's going to make himself audible. Won't be a second here.
Is this the work experience kid or what?
It's
Guy.
Nope. He's not able to do it. Oh.
I can hear you, but I don't think the listeners can. That's all right. Anyway,
You've broken
thanks.
our whole broadcast.
Thanks very much, guys. Good stuff.
Thanks very much, Goofball Antics. Good to see you back on the podium with your incredible new persona. I reckon 50 press-ups is a bit of a wussy number, though, so maybe try to make it 100 and see if you can grow some chest hair. On the top
I'll
step
look
of the
forward to
podium.
your video of your challenge.
Thanks very much. Meanwhile, yeah, I'll get plenty of time to practice in lockdown. But on the top step of the podium, the man who apparently didn't fall for any of your psychological warfare, Brenton Foley, a fantastic race, mate, and bloody excellent to watch. Congratulations on your second win on the trot and your newfound championship lead over Xeris.
I don't even know why you want to interview me after that. I can't top that. But yeah, it was a good race. My plan from the get-go was to save as much fuel without dropping track position and be as annoying as possible. So as soon as I was challenged, I put the foot down just a little bit, just enough to stay ahead. And I think I said to Berto a couple of times that if the roles were reversed and I was the one being held up that much, I would have been pretty angry. And that he was doing a good job to keep a cool head. But saved more than enough fuel and used a little bit too much tyre while saving fuel. So I think Heath had a little bit of pace on me towards the end, but I just managed to cap, and overall it was a really good race.
Yeah, we did notice right towards the end, the last few laps, you seem to be struggling a little bit on your tyres. You're good with worn tyres, but I was saying this is quite a long race to do with some very fast corners that would probably eat up those tyres quite a bit. So you found yourself struggling towards the end?
Definitely with the rears, because the way that I was saving quite a bit of fuel was using more tyre in the corners and rolling into them a bit faster and things like that. So in order to save fuel, I think I used my tyres a little bit more at the start, which cost me towards the end. But overall, just wrapped with the result.
Absolutely, and congratulations once again on your win and your new championship lead over Xeris once again. So 77 points in your advantage now, heading into the endurance race next week at Nazareth. Are you familiar with Nazareth at all? Not the biblical city, but the racetrack.
I've heard that it's an oval. I've never done oval racing, so that'll be something completely new to me if that is correct.
I believe that is correct.
Yep. Never. Well, the only other oval I've been on is half of the Daytona oval in a GT3 car, which doesn't really count. So we'll see what happens. As I said earlier, don't like really getting the championship lead this way with Xeris away, but as I was persuaded by others to take points where I can get them.
Absolutely, and you always take the opportunity to get points over Xeris because the opportunities are few and far between usually. So congratulations once again, Brenton Foley, and very well done tonight.
Thanks very much.
Well, Matty, that was a cracking night of racing, some excellent interviews, and some fantastic questions asked of us that I was not expecting. But my goodness, that was an entertaining night of racing, wasn't it?
It really was, and I got to agree with the sentiments that Scott Morrow was putting forward there, is that this track and these cars really go hand in hand quite well, and it produced some excellent racing with cars at different states of fuel and tyres and driver skill, just really battling it out all the way around this track for all the racing, and it was fantastic to see. I'm just going to briefly touch on the championship standings that we've been alluding to. Brenton Foley is on 741 points. 77 points now ahead of Xeris, as we were talking about a little bit earlier. And our good friend Goofball Antics, who has finished in second that last race, he's third in the championship, a further 158 points behind. So he's got a bit of work to do. And he, if he wants to get back up in the championship hunt, he's got to start getting wins on the board here. But for the time being, it's hotter than ever for the front between Brenton Foley and Xeris.
It is indeed. So we will see you this time next week. Well, not this time, a little bit earlier on, but this time next week at Nazareth for some interesting oval racing endurance action in these Opala stock cars. But in the meantime, I've been Mad Bird.
And I've been Matty. It's been great to have your company.
And we'll see you next week.